Nerd Eye Council. This is the Nerd Eye Council. Paranoid we don't need. Roach. Roach. Paranoid we don't need. Roach. Roach. Paranoid we don't need. Roach.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Nerd Eye Council.
You know what, Nate? I don't need wounds either. That guy's white. I just buy whatever I want. People, places, whatever.
People, places, things. I'm a now.
We're back!
Yay.
And we're finally gonna do some conspiracy shit. Or truth talk, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. I was thinking about that today. I hate that fucking word, conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And there's no other, like, alternate word to use.
It just makes it sound crazy.
Even if you say, like truth talk or something, that's, like, offensive to people because it makes people feel, oh, yeah, you know the fucking truth and I'm stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today we're gonna name conspiracy. We're gonna figure out a word for conspiracy theories.
Yes, we will figure out what exactly we are going to call it.
Call it whistleblowers.
Whistleblowers.
But yeah, we've been talking about doing this episode forever, and Ralph almost didn't show up today, and we were just about going to cancel it, and it was never going to happen. But thank God Ralph was alive, and we can talk about conspiracies.
Never count me out. Never count me out.
But I figured we would first start out with a little bit of breaking news that happened earlier this week.
Gotta talk about it.
It broke that Colin Trevorrow, the supposed director of Episode 9,
Well
is
said.
out.
I can't say that last name. It fucks with me.
He's
Well
out
done.
as the director of Episode 9.
They fired his ass. Don't let him lie to you. They say the same shit every time. We had creative differences. No, you were like, motherfucker, we told you to do this and you didn't do it, you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
You're a memory now.
You're fired!
You'll remember.
So we don't have an Episode 9 director now, as of yet. But, of course, the internet is talking. And what is the internet saying?
The two names that have popped up unofficially are Ryan Johnson and J.J. Abrams.
J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
He did so good.
So I figured we'd talk about this for just a minute before we get into
He
conspiracies.
did 7, didn't he?
Yeah, he did
Yeah,
7.
he's so good.
So we'll kind of go around the table and like talk about what do you think this means. If you have any ideas, throw them out there. But basically, who do you think they should use? It's wide open right now, even though there are kind of hints dropping all over that it's probably going to be one of those two. But they could pull in anybody right now at the moment. Go ahead, Nate.
And I was going to say, since this would be the end of this storyline, supposedly, we would think, depending on what happens in 8, leading up into 9, why not have George Lucas go out?
I heard this already. I
That would
did
be
hear.
cool.
I heard somebody else say this on a video, and I was like, yes, yes.
That would be cool. That would be cool. What, does he still have it, though? I mean,
No,
last time
I
he
mean,
directed it was fucking
Well,
Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, I mean, does he still have it?
Yeah.
I think he does, man. I think, you know what? I think maybe the whole problem with George Lucas was that it was like a dictatorship. And in the beginning, he was young and he was creative and stuff, but by the time the prequels happened, he was like, this is my idea, and if anybody tells me differently, you're basically off my set. But from what we've heard, Lucasfilm does a lot of, like, sit down, like, there's basically, from what I've heard, a room, or several rooms, meetings they have, and it's just a round table. They go around shooting out ideas, blah, blah, blah. So maybe that's, if you put George in the director's seat, but you make him kind of go along with whatever ideas that the storyboard is throwing out there. So it's not just his story. But you don't take all creative shit away from him either. You let him put his Well,
Yeah.
I think we ought to do that. Okay.
To
well,
an extent, though.
to an extent, hear him out. That's all I'm saying.
Because look at 1 through 3, episode 1, 2, and 3. It was really bright with bright colors, and it was more like really wasn't like dark and grody how fucking 7 was. 7 was the shit. That's what we needed. And
Well,
I don't know. I just didn't like I liked the prequels, but I didn't like how it was filmed. It could have been a little bit more darker, and they had better ships, which don't make sense. What happened to all them ships before?
see, my problem with the prequels is
Isn't
not
that
necessarily visionary, because I think there's a lot of cool scenes in the prequels. My problem with it is the story.
Yeah, the story was kind of.
I mean, I like the story of Anakin and all that, but I don't. He told it it could have been told in a better way. I think with a little more. What's the word I'm looking for? It just seemed like we kind of skipped along Anakin's life. Like there wasn't. Like one of my favorite parts of the prequels is hands down the Plagueis talk.
Episode 3.
Yeah, and I've thought about this, like why I like that scene so much, because the prequels are so kind of thin. There's not much depth to them.
Mm-hmm.
Story. It's a character development story
That's what it is.
without any character development. You kind of just skip along through Anakin's journey, and at the end you're kind of like, okay, he's Darth Vader, but I really didn't even know who that guy was. Whereas before, when they were talking about doing this, that was my whole I want to find out who Anakin was. And I think he kind of missed that. Because he's not really a storyteller by nature. George is good at certain things, but characters are not necessarily his strong point, I don't think. I mean, I love Luke Skywalker, I love Darth Vader, but you could say those characters were not very developed.
Yeah, they weren't. And then it's almost like the whole thing with episode 1 happened because of Jar Jar Binks. You know what I mean? Like, everything.
Well, I mean, we all love Qui-Gon here at the table. You had this great character of Qui-Gon, and he got like a blink of an eye. That's and then he was gone. And they never really even went into depth about who was Qui-Gon. And I guess now we have the chance to see that, possibly, hopefully in the future. Maybe they'll do a Qui-Gon movie now. But, I like the idea of George. You think about it, dude, how many people have jumped off the George Lucas train? This could be his fucking ultimate redemption. If Disney pretty much writes the story and hands it to him and lets him direct it, and he gets all the accolades, that would be cool, man, where people would be like, you know what, fuck it. He redeemed himself in the end, just like Darth Vader, or just like Anakin. That's a pretty cool idea. I like that idea. As far as directors go, I hate the idea of J.J. Abrams directing it.
What?
Well, I mean, I've talked about this before a little bit on the podcast. I like J.J. I think he's got a really interesting sci-fi mind, but he's not good at wrapping shit up. He's not. That's just, if you watched Lost, if episode 7 just did not answer shit, it just threw out questions. Even the Star Trek series, which I haven't seen the last one. And
I haven't seen the last one
I
either.
heard it's way better than the second one, but the first 2 movies, there's a lot of here's Star Trek, and then it's over. It's kind of like, here it is, you want this, and I'm not going to go into it any further. He's just not good at finishing, and this has to finish really good. It has to. So I don't like J.J. Abrams in that choice, unless Disney's like, here's what you're doing, you're just directing it. If that's the situation, if they take all creative power out of his hands, then okay. Because I think he's a good director visually. I like the way he films things. I don't know if you guys ever saw Cloverleaf.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it was really cool the way it was filmed. It was one of those movies that was kind of like half of it or so was done with like somebody holding the camera.
Yeah, like one of those found footage
Right, like Blair Witch.
type of movies.
Right. Well, not as bad as Blair Witch, where the camera fucking shakes all the time and stuff, but it had that kind of point of view feel to it. So I think he's a good director aesthetically, but not for ending a story, a trilogy, a saga. If I had to pick, if I was like, okay, Jeremy, who would you like to see? Fucking give me Nolan. Give me Nolan, dude.
Christopher
Can you
Nolan.
imagine Christopher Nolan ending the trilogy? Dude. Just fucking pay him whatever he wants. Step away and let him finish it.
Yeah.
Seriously. But I don't think that, because Disney's got their hands on it too much. And I
Yeah.
don't think Nolan would like that. But for the right price,
Yeah, they can get him.
they got the money for it.
I mean, everyone's got a price.
That's right. If you told that dude, we'll give you 10% of all the earnings. Fuck. 10% of a movie that's gonna make $3 billion.
First weekend.
Alright, I'll do it. I'll do it. But dude, he's filthy rich. He doesn't. You'd have to pay that motherfucker a lot.
Give me
But
Tim Burton.
I'm all for it. Tim Burton might be interesting too.
Ooh, I don't know. A
Mm.
Tim Burton Star Wars movie?
It'd be
I don't
really
know about
dark.
that.
Nah, because he might throw some fucked up thing in there.
Yeah.
Like, I like Tim Burton, but every once in a while he puts something in the movie that you're like, what?
He said Johnny Depp's gonna be in there.
Yeah, like
No.
that's a must if Tim Burton is doing it.
Yeah, little fucking clay figure.
But I mean, if he was guided along
Yeah.
and not allowed to do the crazy shit, that could be interesting.
Keep it
I'm
dark.
a fucking Wookiee, y'all.
I could even see Matt Reeves doing it, but
I think he's got his hands
That's
full
what-
with
yeah.
DC right now.
I think he's got a
Trying to
lot
get that shit up off the ground.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like the idea of Ryan Johnson. I know we haven't seen 8 yet, but I have a lot of confidence in that guy. If you think about it, it's the only Star Wars movie that kind of got filmed seamlessly. Nothing, I mean, with the exception of Carrie Fisher passing away, but
Right.
that's out of everybody's control.
Right.
But from what I've heard on set, the cast loved him, said he really had a vision, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we heard reports that he was writing 8 and 9, so maybe he's already got, like, the ending in his head of how it should end.
Yeah, and maybe maybe his ending is more in line with what Kathleen Kennedy, the head of Disney, is wanting as far as the direction.
Let me ask
That
you
she
guys
wants
this
to go.
before we wrap this up. Let me ask you this. How much did it change things? You guys think that she was a big part of the story?
I think she was supposed to have probably not necessarily, but a large part in 9. But she was supposed to be featured in 9.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the more shit that kind of goes wrong, the more I start to think, maybe it's all because of Carrie Fisher. You know, I know that we've heard shit like they don't really have a concrete plan for the trilogy. They've been kind of making it up as they go. How true that is, I'm not sure. I don't even know how you go into. Let's rewind to 2013 when they start making The Force Awakens. How do you go, we're going to make 3 Star Wars movies, a new trilogy, but we have no fucking clue about what? Like, I have to think there was some general idea, and maybe they've changed it quite a bit since then, but I just can't believe there was, we'll just...
Well, it's kind of like how the prequels were. They really, if you wouldn't know, you would think it was just like thrown together, like, you know.
But George had an overall idea, don't you think?
Yeah, but I mean, he might have had an overall idea. But if you take somebody like J.J. Abrams or Christopher Nolan and redirect 1, 2, 3, I think it'd be a lot better. Because it does look like it was just thrown together at the last minute, kind of. You know?
If you had an overall idea, it would kind of make more sense to go, okay, J.J. Abrams is directing all 3. You know, here's the idea, and we're going to have this guy make them. Instead of doing, there's not many trilogies that are filmed by 3 different people.
I think that's a good idea though, because that means that the next movie is going to try to be better and bigger than the last one was, because the directors are trying to outdo each other.
Yeah.
So 7 was good, but 8's going to be awesome, and 9's going to be badass, because they're just trying to up it, you know. So all the questions we had in 7 that J.J. Abrams left us hanging with, maybe we'll get in the first 10 minutes of 8, you know.
At least some of them. Most of them better be answered by 8. Well, we know we're going to get Rey's parents. That's been declared.
Dude, what if it's like Luke?
The more I think about her parents, and we won't go into this too much because this is what starts it all, but the more I think about it, I think it's really not anything. I mean, it's gonna be something, but the more I think about it, the more I think we're gonna end up going, oh.
I was thinking, what about Count Dooku? Where's he playing all this? He could be even her grandfather.
They're really not fucking touching the trilogy or the prequels. But if they're bringing Anakin back, maybe they've kind of let go of that idea. Because I really think with The Force Awakens, they were like, people don't like the prequels, let's not even mention them. But maybe now they're like, you know what, it's important to the story, especially if we're bringing Vader into this. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. It kind of bugs me a little bit that they don't mention the prequel shit at all.
Mm-mm.
And if they go through this whole trilogy without mentioning the prequels, that will probably bother me.
I think they're just doing it because the Luke Skywalker and Han Solo stories were closer in date than Episode 1 and 2 and 3. It'd be like talking about your grandparents' life when you know everything about your dad's life. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's a good point.
It's like, well, you really don't know much about it, so you're not going to talk about it. But,
well, they're just gonna
plus it was only 30 years ago, so.
Right. What was I just going to say? Oh, well, we're all kind of thinking they're going to talk about the prophecy. And they haven't talked about... The only time they ever talked about the prophecy was in the prequels.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe... I mean, we're assuming by looking at that book that there's going to be some sort of talk about the prophecy. And the quote we heard that Luke Skywalker... I almost said Mark Hamill, but Luke Skywalker believed Kylo was the chosen one. And then that was thrown out there. By
Right.
Mark Hamill, I think, maybe.
I think, yeah, by him, like, he believed that Kylo was the chosen one, not from a prophecy perspective, but the chosen one for Luke.
So maybe they bring up the chosen one talk, but still don't talk about the prophecy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it could be revealed on Octo 2 if this is the first Jedi Temple, which we are led to believe. Then maybe they have the true version of the prophecy.
Right.
Supposedly, if the prophecy is for real.
But I'm kind of, honestly, I wasn't real big on this guy. I'm kind of happy about this, actually. This, to me, is not like the Han Solo news where I'm like, I don't know what to feel about all this. To me, I'm kind of like, yay, because I didn't really... Jurassic World, I own it. It's a good movie. It's alright. But I'm pretty sure he didn't write it.
No, J.J. Abrams?
No.
Colin Trevorrow.
Trevorrow, yep.
Sorry.
And on top of that, it's a good movie, but it's not like, oh, that's awesome, and...
It's not what you would want to watch over and over.
Right, and character development sucks in that movie.
Yeah.
What, Jurassic Park?
Jurassic World.
Yeah, I mean, you have the two kids that are basically the stars, and then the parents, which... I've seen that movie like 3 or 4 times, and I still don't fucking understand what was going on with the parents. Like, they were divorcing, but you never really understood why. And did they end up getting back together in the end? I don't even really remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Like I said, the character, he's not really good at character development, I don't think.
I know the Ant and Star-Lord hit it off.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if, because to me, 9 should be very character heavy, So I don't know, but I wonder how much of the actual story, if there was one, revolved around Princess Leia. I was actually thinking about this the other night. By the way, Rekka is wearing a kick-ass Star Wars shirt.
Like that?
Explain to the listeners. It says Star Wars. It's got a TIE fighter flying across the Star Wars logo. It's blue. It's badass.
Cost me $9 at Myos.
It's badass. I like it. What was I saying? Oh, I was kind of thinking about this. Like, what if the original story was Leia was going to save the galaxy? Like, Luke saved it the first time, and then his twin sister saves it the next time.
Maybe.
Like, maybe that was the overall plan. Like, somehow she was going to be the reason Kylo was redeemed and defeats Snoke because of it.
It sounds about right, because, I mean...
he kills his dad, so the only connection he has to, like, love and light or whatever is his mom.
And it sounds like it would go off like that, because look at the last two Star Wars movies we had. It was a female that was, Rogue One and...
True, exactly.
Seven.
Kathleen Kennedy's in charge, so
The female...
I could easily see her going, okay, this is what we're going to do. Leia's the hero,
Exactly.
And they still have time to change their mind, too, between now and when they either start filming episode 9 or whatnot, to whether they want to bring back Leia. Of course, this is all dependent on what happens in episode 8, because I heard that Leia kind of gets a little send-off in this movie.
It's going to be like Fast and the Furious. They're going to pull up to each other. Song starts playing.
So if that was like the original story, that Leia was the hero in the end, the only way they can accomplish that now, if they want to tell that story, is by using her digitally. Would you guys want to see that? Would you want to see episode 9 with a digital Leia?
I would.
Would we know if it's being digitalized?
Well, yeah. Because she's dead. So, and we know she died.
How much of 8 did she do?
She finished.
Well, she finished 8.
Right.
So everything in 8 is her. We're talking about episode 9.
So going into 9, you would know everything is digital. Everything Leia is digital. Would it bother you? Would you rather see that story? Because I gotta be honest, as much as I liked the Tarkin thing, it might bother me.
I think the only flashback, or the only way they'll CGI her is if they do a flashback.
Yeah.
I don't think people will be more upset with that if it's a flashback.
We just don't know what Disney's capable of. They might have the fucking technology to pull it off, and they're just not doing it yet.
They're currently working on an Android unit right now.
And to recreate Leia.
And to recreate
you
Leia.
You say that shit, but that's a good lead-in to the conspiracy talk today.
Disney, bro. I want to
Any other thoughts before we move on?
No, let's move on.
All right. I do want to, one more thing, I do want to give a shout-out before I forget this, because we don't always do a podcast every week, and I'm old and I forget shit. Shout-out to Thor Skywalker.
Such a badass name.
Thor Skywalker, who we love, Jeremy loves very much on YouTube, his videos. Go check him out. He does some great fucking theories about Star Wars. And he's really good about talking, answering comments and such. So I left him a comment, and my phone's out of commission, or else I'd read it. But basically, it was about episode 8, and I said something about, my comment to him was, I've been telling everybody for a long time now, episode 8 is going to be great. Maybe even the best Star Wars film of all time. I do think something is up with the marketing, why we're not getting a trailer yet. This movie's not really being pushed. And I said, I think we might get one more trailer in mid-October that will blow everybody's fucking minds. And he replied back. Oh, and I also said, hey, we love your videos. We mention them on our podcast that we do. I left a link to our podcast. And he answered back, and he was like, yeah, I also think 8 is going to be great. And he's like, you might be right about the one more trailer idea. And then he said, thanks for mentioning my videos on your podcast. I will definitely check it out. So no pressure, guys. No pressure. But there's a professional listening.
Oh my god, what are we? Being professional, then what are we?
We just amateurs.
We novice, what do they call it?
Novice.
Novice. We're novice.
Speak for yourself.
I ain't no novice.
I'm not a murderer, manslaughter. Well, it's not the same.
I didn't say more than shit.
But yeah, big shout out to Thor Skywalker. And on that note, let's talk about some crazy shit. Let's get into this.
Let's do it.
So I had some things written down, but where should we lead off? Should we lead off with, I know we all love the Mandela effect, and that's probably a good intro, but should we first talk about the weather?
Well, I would say, so we'll have a Wreck-It here get us going here. with our with our first conspiracy theory topic to talk about.
Mandela.
Go
If
for
that's
it.
what you want to go for.
Okay.
So, for anyone that might be just listening to this because they're like nerds and then they're like, what the fuck are they talking about? What is the Mandela effect?
The Mandela effect are people remembering Nelson Mandela dying in the 1980s, except he died in 2013. So, in August 2016, a worker, we'll call him Jeremy, he was part of the collective group, the collective group was in charge of changing the timeline. Started in 2012, which makes sense because 2012 was the year the world was supposed to end. After a nuclear war wiped out the world, scientists managed a way to reset certain events in the software with their quantum computers. Memory erase are being made to everyone. Shortness of breath, severe 30-second headaches, and fatigue, and a 30-second back pain. They are changing events of history to stop the nuclear war that happened in 2012, which is crazy because 2012 was the year, like I said,
The Mayan
the
calendar.
Mayan calendar, yeah.
So an example of the Mandela effect was, I don't know if anybody out there remembers the children's book, The Berenstain Bears.
This is what clued me into the Mandela effect.
Right. So I remember it as the Berenstain Bears
With the E.
with an E.
Me too. Very much so.
Right. And apparently, it has always been, quote unquote, it has always been the Berenstain Bears with an A.
A-I-N.
Right.
But it has not.
No.
No. There's even, you've seen like the TV guide, which people listening, if there's any listeners, might be like, what the fuck's a TV guide? If you're quite young, TV guide was something that ran for many, many decades, and it was just basically what I said. It's like a guide to every channel on TV back before there was hundreds of channels.
Right.
Network TV of like what was coming on that week or 2 weeks. I can't remember if it ran week to week.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
But it would list night after night like what the show was and what was coming on. It would give a brief description of the show or the episode that was about to happen. And I've seen pictures from TV Guide back in the 80s or 90s that said the Berenstain Bears with an E-I.
Mm-hmm.
So this shit about, oh, it's always been that way. No, it hasn't. Somebody's lying. Somebody is lying.
You know what else is trippy? That, and plus when you start seeing Bible verses that
Yep.
change, because I picked one up called
The Lamb.
the land. Yeah, it was Isaiah chapter 11 verse 6. It says, "The lion shall live with the lamb." Now it says, "The wolf shall live with the lamb." More than 12,000 changes has been made to the original timeline. That's per YouTube.
Yeah, I was aware of that one too, which is very weird. There's a few that like, and I think everybody who kind of buys into this has their own that they go, oh, that one. Like to me, the C-3PO one is fucking mind-boggling. Mind-boggling to me. His leg has always been silver. One leg has always been silver. No, it's fucking not. I had the toy C-3PO. And this is what's weird about the Mandela effect, because time goes on and you it's like, you know, those old memories you have, some of the youngest memories you have, and you kind of go, I think I remember that, or it was a dream, I'm not sure. But I do remember having a C-3PO action figure, and I could swear that it was all gold. Mm-hmm. And we're talking, this is 80s when, you know, the original trilogy was out, Kenner toys. I do not remember Silver Lake at all. Supposedly, Lucasfilm has said he's always had a Silver Lake. And if you go back and watch the movies, I have watched I own the original trilogy on DVD, and it is silver. It is silver. And I have watched the movie going, what the fuck? because I've seen Star Wars on, I mean, not the original Star Wars, but I did see Jedi on the movie screen. I was young. But I've seen Star Wars on VHS. I might have even seen it on Laserdisc back in the day, which Wreck-It Ralph has them all on Laserdisc. And I've seen them on DVD. I've even seen them on Blu-ray. I do not fucking remember a Silver Lake until it was pointed out to me, and I went back and watched them on my DVD that I owned and went, there it is. I saw it with my own eyes. I'm like, what the fuck? That one really bothers me. Also, another one with Star Wars is the Luke, I'm your father.
Right.
And that one, it's a little more explainable to me because a sentence can get taken out of context. It's not like something visually that you see with your eyes over and over again. It's there. You see it with your eyes. So we're referring to of course, the huge reveal, the big moment in cinematic history where Darth Vader reveals to Luke Skywalker that I am your father. We have always assumed, most people assume, that he says, quote unquote, Luke, I am your father. And Luke says, no, it can't be true. Something to that effect.
Right.
But in actuality, Disney says, Lucasfilm says, no, he never said that. He always said, no, I am your father, minus the Luke. And I have heard many, it's a very famous quote.
Right.
I've heard many people use this quote in day-to-day life. I've seen it on TV and other shows, people using it like as a joke. And they always say Luke. They always say, Luke, I am your father. So why did people, if it never existed, why?
Didn't he say it twice, though? In Empire and Return of the Jedi? I thought he said it twice. The first one was, no, I'm your father. Or the first one was, no, Luke, I am your father. And then this Return of the Jedi.
He doesn't say Luke at all in Empire. He does not say Luke.
Then it might be, no, I'm your father, but Return of the Jedi, I could have sworn he said it twice.
Well, Luke talks about, like, Luke addresses him in Jedi as father.
Right, because that he says, I still sense the good in you.
He does call him father at least one point.
Yeah, when they're walking down the hallway.
Yeah, I think something like that. And then, of course, later on, Luke says, no, I'm a Jedi like my father before me, but that's not what we're talking about. But
Right.
No, I don't think Vader says it
In
Jedi. Not to my recollection. But those are two big Star Wars ones, and there's actually a couple other Star Wars ones that I can't quite remember. Other Mandela Effect ones that stand out to you guys?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I know I've heard several that are like, whoa, but they're not popping into my mind.
The part of the JFK assassination one.
Yes, that one's awesome.
Where it... Because I even asked my parents this, and my parents were born in the 50s, and so they remember this a little bit. But they remember Kennedy's car being a 4-seater.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently, it's always been a 6-seater the whole time.
That one fucks with
Which
me too.
doesn't make sense because I remember a conspiracy theory later on saying that the driver shot him. How can the driver shoot him if there's 6? You have to shoot over 2 other people. That don't make sense. I always thought it was 4.
Were there other people in those seats?
Yeah.
Supposedly, yeah.
I don't remember other people. I remember the driver, the governor of Texas. Wasn't he the governor in the passenger
He was
seat?
the governor, yeah.
The guy that got his arm, part of the bullet went through his arm or whatever. And then the president and his wife.
And Jackie Kennedy.
I do not remember 2 other people at all.
No.
Yeah, and if you look at the museum shows 4-seater, but the papers and the YouTube videos and all that show 6.
The Zapruder film.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know, but the Zapruder film, the big one video that has existed for years, it shows 6 people. Like, I've seen the video after one of us pointed this out, and I was like, I don't remember that.
Mm-mm.
2 other people being in the car. I don't remember that at all.
No. I
Yeah.
remember 4 because I remember listening to Coast to Coast, and the guy said that he was not killed by Oswald, he was killed by the driver. And that don't make sense now, looking back. So how can it be the driver? He'd have to go over 2 other people.
I've even heard the Jackie Kennedy theory that she shot him.
That she shot him.
And it doesn't, when you first hear that, you're like, whatever. But if you watch the video, it looks pretty weird. I'm not saying she did, but it does look weird the way she grabs his head.
Mm-hmm.
She grabs his head, and we've always kind of thought, well, she was freaking out. I mean, everybody thinks her reaction when it happened was weird. But then your husband's head just exploding in front of you, you probably would do something weird. She got up on top of him and then, chased his brains almost out of the car, from the Zapruder film. And it was really the Secret Service guy that, kind of pushed her back in the car, you're fucking losing it, lady, get back in the car.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, you're gonna die chasing his brain. But yeah, if you watch it under that context of oh no, she shot him with a little gun. If you watch it under that idea, all of a sudden you kind of go, oh wow, it almost does look like she puts her hand up under his chin
Yep.
and fucking puts a bullet in his brain. Yeah.
And then the blood sprays out to the top of his head.
Weird. Really weird. I tell you what, though, the Nelson Mandela thing, which this is named after, it doesn't click with me.
No.
No, I remember being at my grandmother's house when I was a little kid, and I remember him getting out of jail. I'm gonna tell you what I think, why I think that one's not a real good example. I remember him getting out of jail in 88 or 89, and it was a big deal. I mean, I was about 10 or whatever, so I didn't really give a fuck, but it was on the news. And I remember looking at it and watching, and I remember I might even ask my grandma, who is this guy? But he got released from the South African prison that he was in for a long time, and I think people, their memory of that story gets misconstrued. I think it was all over TV, and I think people remember it as he died. Oh, it was all over the TV because he died. But it was in the 80s was when he got released, and I think that's why, to me, that one doesn't really hold up.
Yeah, I think a better explanation of the Mandela effect is you remember something, some event, some TV show, some product one way, and then you find out that it's always been another way, but you remember it a different way.
Right.
And obviously you're not the only one that remembers.
Yeah, that's the key, is it's not just
It's
your
not just
memory,
you, yeah.
Right, it's a shared by millions memory of is that even possible? If it's just your memory and you don't know these people, how can they have the same memory as you?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it gets into quantum time and physics and where it gets all quasi weird. Okay, so there are many other examples, and we're just going kind of brain dead right now, but we've pointed out a couple of the better ones, and the Berenstain Bears for me is huge.
It's
Huge. I didn't own shit when I was a little kid, but my grandmother, I remember, back in the day, you could get subscriptions to magazines, and when you ordered subscriptions, they would sometimes offer, children's books. You could order, Dr. Seuss books, and they would come, ever so often in the mail, and I'm pretty sure that's what my grandma did, because she was big on magazine subscriptions, and, there was only 3 grandkids, and she would let us pick out our favorite magazines. So whenever we would come over to the house, there would always be new magazines to read. And I remember I picked out Sports Illustrated and I think Entertainment Weekly, which ironically, those are the 2 magazine subscriptions I have today. But I remember the Berenstain books. I remember reading them at my grandma's house, and we had a shit ton of them. And I vividly remember the way it was spelled. I remember that vividly. Like, it's not like I looked at it and examined it, but you know, you look at a word enough times, it gets programmed in your brain.
Right.
And so when I first heard that, I was like, no, it's not. And then I had to look it up and saw the books with the Stain on it. And I was like, what the fuck? And I even remember asking my grandma, my grandma was passed away at that time, but I asked my aunt, her daughter, and she's like, yeah, I remember the Berenstain Bears. And I'm like, how do you remember them? You know, is it E, I, or A? And she's like, I'm pretty sure it was E, I, or Y. And she was not aware of the Mandela effect. And I'm like, exactly. And I kind of explained it to her, and then she just kind of shrugged her shoulders, like, whatever.
Go to bed, you little bastard.
It doesn't matter to me. But yeah, to me, that one is the one. You know how I found out about this? You remember Jeff?
Yeah,
We had an AGM at our store. He was real brief. He was only there like 4 or 5 months.
He's a dumb fuck.
Yeah, he was interested. I had some cool talks with Jeff, but he was an interesting dude. He was the one. He was big into conspiracies, and he's like, well, have you ever heard about the Mandela effect? And I was like, the what? And so he's like, okay, so best example I can give you is, do you remember the Berenstain Bears? And I'm like, hell yeah. I'm like, I had those books, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, how was it spelled? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, is it spelled? And he went through it with me, and I'm like, yeah, it was E-I. Like, was not a doubt in my mind. He said, no, it wasn't. And I was like, no, it was, dude. And he's like, no, it wasn't. If you go back and look it up, you won't find a picture with the E-I. And he's like, and so this was his personal story that I thought was pretty fucking weird. So he found out about this, and he said he read those books when he was a kid. So he called his mom and dad, and he was talking to his mom and dad, and he's like, hey, do you remember me reading those Berenstain books? And they're like, yeah, we still have them here somewhere. And he's like, go find one, please, like right now. And his mom was like, what? And he's like, I need to know something. So he made his mom put down the phone and go get one of these books. And he's like, all right, I'm not going to ask you anything except spell the word Berenstain to me as it is written on the cover. And this is a book that when he was a kid he read it, and he remembered looking at it and seeing E-I. And she spelled it A-I-N. And he's like, are you sure, Mom? And she's like, what are you talking about? Yes, I'm sure. And so then he tried to explain it to her, and she's like, yeah, you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what the fuck? He said, I hung up the phone, like, what the fuck? And I'm like, so that's one of the weirdest things about the Mandela effect. No matter how vividly your memory is, you can't go back and prove it because it's changed. That's the weird part. Like, I do not remember C-3PO's silver leg, but I can't prove it to anyone because I can't go back and find a C-3PO
to back up your claim.
Right.
I got two at my house, and both of them got gold legs.
On VHS?
No, the figures.
Oh, the toys.
Both of them got gold legs.
And you have them still?
Yeah, they got gold legs.
Yeah, I went back and I watched Return of the Jedi, and the part where the Ewoks turned C-3PO into a god, and they put him on that, like, wicker throne or whatever, and so the camera is facing his knee, and you're looking right at it, and it's silver. And I'm like, what? Like, I would think I would have remembered that. All these years I've seen Return of the Jedi fucking at least 30 times. At least. Probably more. Out of all those times I've watched it, I would think I would have looked at that leg that stood out and went, I wonder why it's silver. Like, why would I know how my own brain works. Why would I not ask myself that question? And I do not remember thinking that. Ever. Until it got pointed out to me. So this brings up a really interesting question I want to talk about with the Mandela effect. Are we changing reality? If people have theories about, like, what is causing this, if it's a real thing, why did it happen, how is it happening, what's causing it? Are we causing it with our minds? And we're gonna talk some crazy shit, so don't look at me crazy. But we're gonna talk some crazy shit today at certain
Like,
points.
what do you mean?
All right, so
Are we thinking that it was something else, but it really wasn't?
so the power of our minds is way more powerful than what most people understand.
Yeah, because
Like-
the general consensus is that the humans only use 10% of their brain,
Right.
and so there's still another 90% of your brain that is locked,
That we don't tap.
that we don't
into.
tap into.
So I'm proposing, like, okay, so this is kind of a good example. I know this has happened to you guys. Let's say you have a drink, and I don't have a drink cup but in front of me, but like like a fountain drink.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lid on it, and you can't see what's in it, but you remember pouring yourself Mountain Dew. Or let's say somebody gives you the drink, and you say, what is it? And they go, Mountain Dew. And so, oh, you go, okay, and you kind of like don't think about it, you kind of put your mind on something else, and then you go to take a drink because you're thirsty, and you lift that drink and you drink it, and you think it's Mountain Dew. Like 100% of your brain is convinced it's Mountain Dew, but it's actually Coke. When you drink it, it's going to taste like shit. The first sip you take is going to be like, what the fuck was that?
Mm-hmm.
Because for a brief moment, your brain...
Is expecting
Right. It
Mountain Dew.
thought it was Mountain Dew until it reached that other part of your brain that said, whoa, this ain't Mountain Dew. So did you, from the time that you were told it was Mountain Dew, from the time that you took a drink of it, did you change the drink?
I always thought about stuff.
I know I'm getting deep, but I know I'm not saying, oh, you physically changed the object. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, are our minds powerful enough that if all of us believed something together, that it could actually change reality? Like, you can't change that Coke into Mountain Dew because it's just your mind. But what if the power of 3 million people or 30 million people all believed it was Mountain Dew? It's something to ponder and think about. The power of suggestion is very real.
Yeah.
Very real. It's just like fucking now. I mean, we can get into placebo, which is a fascinating thing. And then you might say, well, how's this a conspiracy? Well, it is in a way. Like, I had a friend when I moved out to Connecticut, and we were fucking dirt broke, and I was trying to go to school, and he was just basically partying all his money away. And I was working, but he really wasn't working. And I remember him telling me, hey man, you want to do this thing with me? And he brought this newspaper article to me, and it was like, I don't know if they still do this, but in the classifieds, not too long ago, you used to be able to sometimes find such and such company is doing experiments on new products or whatever, and you can join the study,
Right.
and get paid for it. But if you do it, then you're basically like signing a piece of paper saying, I will do this, I will do that, I won't do this, I won't do that. And it was some medical study, and I forget what it was like $200 right off the bat or something like that. And he's like, you want to do this with me? And I'm like, fuck no. I'm like, no, dude, I'm not going to go be a guinea pig. And he's like, I'm doing it. Well, if you don't want to do it, fuck it, I'm doing it. And I was like, really?
And then he was never heard from again.
No. So he did it, and he actually did it. He did a few of these because it was easy money. He told me, and he's really a fucked up dude too. So I wonder sometimes. But I remember the first time he did it, and he came back because we lived together for a while, and he came back home, and I was like, "Tell me what the fuck happened." And he's like, "Well," he was real vague about it. We were like, "Well, we got there, blah blah blah." And then I only saw like 6 other people, and then they separated us, and I went into this room. It was kind of like a hospital room. And he said, like, I stood up, signed all this paperwork, read all this shit. He's like, I didn't read all of it, but signed all this paperwork. And then he's like, this nurse comes in, she's like, okay, this is the first part of the test. And she gave him a pill. And it was like in a little cup and a glass of water. And there was a questionnaire, he told me. So he took the pill. I'm like, whoa. You just fucking swallowed it? You didn't go like, what is it? And he's like, I asked her, what is it? And she's like, well, that's for the purposes of the test. I can't tell you what it is. And I'm like, you didn't walk out at that point, dude? Like, what if you started growing tits in 30 minutes or something? And he's like, I just fucking needed the money, dude. Don't judge me. And he's like, I swallowed the pill. Like, okay, whatever. Swallowed the pill, and then she came back, and then you were supposed to start filling this questionnaire out. And then, like, an hour later, the nurse would come in, and, like, every hour on the hour, she would check up on you and, like, ask you questions. So without going into too much detail, he did this, like I said, several times, but he did this, and then at the end of it, they go, they kind of told you a little bit about the test. So he was given, like, 5 pills, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, but he was given, like, 5 pills, and at the end, they told him the results of, like, well, 3 of your pills were sugar, and they didn't do anything. And I was like, do you remember when you took the pill, like, feeling weird shit? And he's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, he's like, yeah, the first pill they gave me, I ended up finding out the first pill was a placebo pill. But the first pill they gave me, you know, they gave you the pill, she leaves the room, you're in a room by yourself, you know, there's a TV, but you're just there. And he's like, and you got this questionnaire in front of you, and he's like, I started reading it, like, you know, do you feel this side effect, do you feel? And he's like, the more I read the questionnaire, the more I started feeling sick, and I started, like, feeling these side effects. And he's like, and then she came back in, and then later on gave me another pill, and I told her, like, I don't feel good. And she's like, okay, you know, whatever you're feeling, you need to write it down. And he's like, no, I'm not well. You need to do something about this. And she's like, we can't. Like, you're not dying. We promise you, you know, you're not been poisoned. But we can't give you anything to alter the study. So just write down what you're feeling. And he said he felt all these fucking side effects. Like, whatever, he was sweating and had the shakes and shit. And then after the study was over, it was like an overnight study, and the next morning they gave him, oh, by the way, pill 1, 3, and 4 were sugar pills. And so he was like, the one I thought I felt really sick from taking, it was just sugar. Like, so what causes that? What in your brain can make you physically ill when there's nothing there? And how do we have the capability to do that?
That's almost like if you wish on something really, really strong, that you want something, chances are you're going to get it because you want it so bad. And you wish for it really bad.
Right. And this kind of brings up, like, I'm going to throw Christianity in here for a second, like the power of prayer, which I very much believe in. And in the Bible, it talks about, like, don't pray if you don't mean it. And it also says, like, if you're going to pray, believe it's done. Like it's, you might not get the answer you're looking for, but it's done. If you believe it. And Nate's looking over at me like a big cynic right now, but I'm just throwing this out there for us to discuss.
Right.
That, like, I know I've had prayers answered, but to someone who doesn't believe in a higher power or a God, they would probably say, okay, maybe your quote-unquote prayer was answered, but maybe you made it happen by your power of belief. And I'm not discrediting that idea. A friend of mine years ago once told me this, and it ties into what we're talking about, that, and this is really interesting, I've shared this with a lot of people, I don't know if I've ever shared it with you guys, but we were talking one day about some deep shit, and he's like, think about thoughts, man, and how powerful your thoughts are. And I'm like, yeah, I know they are. They're very powerful. But he's like, this is the example he gave. And he said, we were sitting in my kitchen, and he said, look around this room. I said, all right. I kind of looked around, and he's like, everything you see in this room. I said, yeah. And he's like, everything you see in this room, from the refrigerator to that light bulb, this chair, was all an idea. It was a thought before it ever happened. Like, anything that exists cannot exist without first being an idea. Even if you believe in God, and you go, oh, wait a minute, what about creation? Well, God had to have the idea, right? Everything at its root starts as an idea. And if you can discredit that, I'll hear you out. But I've thought about this many times through the years. Like, that's pretty fucking true. I mean, a microwave or a refrigerator. We use these things every day. We don't think about them much. Coffee pot, you don't think about it much. But somebody invented that fucking machine because one day they said, hey, I got an idea. And it started there. And that kind of like gives validity to the power of ideas or thoughts. I think that it has to be kind of considered, don't you think? Thoughts. Don't let me control the conversation.
I mean, it still doesn't change the fact that, yeah, you can have the idea, but you have to then physically make that idea a reality. It's different. It's different because you're comparing that to prayer. If you compare the two, then that means, oh, well, I want little Timmy to be free of cancer. That means that you would have to go out and physically have to create the cure for cancer in order to cure Timmy. If you understand that kind of logic there, I mean, it's
right.
It's two separate things.
Right, I see what you're saying. Except for, here's, the other scenario is, we're sitting here talking about whatever, ideas. And what if I say, you know what? I got an idea for a fucking car that drives itself. And you guys go, oh yeah? And I start explaining it to you. Now, I don't end up building that car, but one of you two takes the idea and builds that car. It was my idea, and the idea, without that idea, the car would not have existed. But I didn't make it happen with my hands.
Well, that's technically not true.
I'm just saying, like, an idea is a thought that's either put down on paper, expressed through, like, I'm going to write this shit down, or you tell somebody, and through telling someone, it becomes real, or by writing down this idea, it becomes real eventually after so many different steps. But I'm saying, at the core, everything has to begin with an idea. Mm-hmm. And if there is an exception, I'm willing to hear it. What exists that was not first an idea? I mean, even like...
Well, there's 100 things that got invented by accident.
An accident. Okay, this is
penicillin.
Interesting. This is interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, an idea to create some other form of medicine created penicillin on accident. And that wasn't that person's idea. They stumbled upon it. But and I kind of know the story about penicillin a little bit. Like this,
a little bit.
The doctor was trying to create something in his lab or whatever, and left the petri dish out, uncovered.
Yeah, left it out like overnight or something. Come back and there's fungus on it.
Right, but then didn't he have the idea then? Isn't it like it wasn't like a complete accident because when he saw the penicillin, which was accidental.
I would have to go back to see just what exactly.
No, that's a really good point you're bringing up, Ralph. To what I was saying, that everything has to be an idea first, unless it's by accident, because things do happen by accident.
Right.
Huh. But then, like I was saying, the guy that created penicillin, it was an accident that he left the shit out overnight and it got mold or fungus on it. But then he didn't just go, he didn't just throw that dish away and go, back to the experiment. He thought about that mold or fungus, which then changed his idea about what I should invent or what I should be creating, right?
What it could
redirected his mind. I don't know, but I want to. One of the most fascinating things about the Mandela effect to Jeremy is I really love. You guys know this. I love time travel. I love time. I love the perception of time and how interesting that is to me. Very, very interesting to me. I find not everybody shares this fascination, but I love time travel, but even more specifically, I love just time and like what is it, and like why do we create? We're slaves to it, and it's, you know, I've had this debate with people too. If you're a believer in a higher power, did God create time, or did God give man the ability to make time? And that's, if you got thoughts, throw it out there, but that's probably a whole nother topic on its
God
own.
would have had to create time, 'cause even in the Bible it says that.
Well, he made darkness and light.
And
So-
6 days?
I mean, but even if you divide the day up into day and night, doesn't that create time right there?
Or-
Day and night is time, right? Like God, there was darkness, the Bible says, and then God made light. And then, so at that point when he made light, did he just make time? Or did man later on go, you know what, I'm going to put an hour on the day, and that way I can know how long it took me to go from point A to point B. Because I have to think distance, time and distance, just like Albert Einstein drilled into our heads. It's all relative, it's related. I have to think when men started to get obsessed about time or record it or keep track of it, it was probably because of distance. Like, they wanted, early man, whoever this was, wanted to figure out how long does it take me to get to
From point
my,
A to point B.
from my home to that watering hole where I get all my water from. So the next time I go on my journey, I can tell how long it's going to take me. I think in my logical brain that's probably where like our concept of keeping track, keeping time like a clock, probably started with distance.
Well, sundials and, you know, some people figured out, they could figure out what the day was based on the position of the sun.
I'm 39, I still don't know how to do that shit.
Right.
Fucking Boy Scouts could probably just like look up at the sun, grab a stick and go, boom, it's 3 o'clock. I've tried to do that so many times and go, I don't know, it could be noon, it could be 3, I don't know. Have you guys ever tried to do that, to make a sundial?
I think when I was a kid, I
You
used
gotta lay on
to.
your back and be naked.
Shut the fuck up.
Have a hard on.
Oh, look, it's 4 o'clock.
Hey, look,
This was the first sundial. Dude had a hot on and it was sunny out. And he looked down and he was like, oh shit, it's 2 o'clock. I gotta go. But,
I think that the people had different. They used different, like aging. For example, like in the Bible, they said people lived thousands of years old. Maybe thousands of years old was days, weeks. Maybe their years were different than our years. It had to have been.
well, we all kind of like wrote down a couple of things today that we wanted to talk about. I wrote down like 3 things, and one of the things I wanted to talk about was, actually, I'm going to bring it up now, and then I'm going to kind of be quiet for a moment and let you guys put out your shit. But it ties into what we're talking about. So, it's about time, and it's about coincidence. And I think that's kind of like, in a relative way, what we're talking about right now with the Mandela effect. Is it just coincidence? A lot of people who do not, they hear about the Mandela effect and they go, oh, that's just a fucking coincidence. Like, you think that's what it was, but that's obviously, you just don't remember it right. It's just a coincidence. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are, what are coincidences? This is what I had written down. First of all, I'm going to talk about something that happened to me last night. Because this sort of shit happens to me all the time. It really does. Not every 10 minutes, but once a week or something. Shit like this happens. Coincidences, some people call them idiosyncrasies, serendipity, like when shit happens and kind of connects or whatever. And I'm sure you guys have had this happen in your life at least once or twice, where something happens and then something else happens that connects to that, and you go, well, that's fucking weird. That's a really big coincidence. Is it a sign? Does it mean something? And I think your belief system kind of has, everybody's, has something to do with how much of, do you believe in coincidence? What do you feel about coincidences and what they are? So, I'm going to tell you what happened to me last night. So this guy comes in. Guy comes in, a driver, and I'm waiting on him, and he hands me, he's paying for like a coffee or something small, and he hands me, he's fucking fingering through change, then he hands me $2, and he hands me a quarter. Well, I thought it was a quarter. He laid it down, and I was like waiting for him to give me the rest of the money, and he's like, "Oh, that's $1, you know," and I was like, I looked at it, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, it is." You guys ever see the dollars that they don't make anymore? I believe Kennedy is on it, but the moon landing is on the other side. It has like an eagle.
It's a $50.
It's $1, actually.
Yeah,
it's a
it's
silver
$1.
dollar.
The silver dollar's
silver
got
dollar.
And they
Kennedy
stopped
on it.
making them, I believe. I remember somebody, like my grandma or somebody, telling me they stopped making them like in the 80s or something.
I know that Kennedy's also on the 50-cent piece as well. I have
Right.
a bunch
But
of
the
those.
50-cent piece is huge.
But yeah, they're big. Yeah.
These are like almost exact same size as the quarter. Maybe just a little bit bigger. And I remember somebody telling me, yeah, they stopped making them because they were too similar to the quarter, and people kept mistaking them.
Mm.
But anyways, he had it, and on one side I believe is Kennedy, and on the other side there's a literal eagle, not the Eagle starship, but a literal eagle like landing on the moon surface. And it says something about the moon landing. So I go, oh yeah, okay, it is $1. Those things look a lot like quarters, blah blah blah. He walks away, and I look at it, and I kind of studied it for a moment, and I looked at the moon part of it, threw it in the drawer, and then moved on with my night. So then, I'm trying to get this in order of how it happened. So then, later in the night, like an hour later or something, this guy walks in. This is how it happened. This guy walks in, and Lou, the other cashier, is waiting on him, and he's buying tobacco, and so she's like, "I need your birthday," and he says, "January something, 1969," and I was walking past, and I heard that, and I was like, "Hey, you were like 6 months old when the moon landing happened." And this guy's like, "Yeah, actually, like I remember my mom saved the cutting, you know, the newspaper clipping, and because it was like when I was 6 months old, like it was a big deal, you know." And he's like, "But I lost it, and I was like, I got all this other bullshit, but I can't find it, and I really wish I could." And we had this like brief conversation about the moon landing, because I said, "Well, yeah, if it even happened," and he's like, kind of laughed. And I go, you know, you ever hear what Stanley Kubrick said about that? And he goes, huh? And I go, you know, Stanley Kubrick, the director that made The Shining, and he made a bunch of other popular movies. But I did say The Shining, and I'm highlighting that because it's key to the story. And he goes, oh, yeah. I said, well, you know, he supposedly, I wasn't there, but he supposedly on his deathbed said, yeah, I was the guy that filmed the moon landing shit. And the guy was like, no kidding, that's fucking weird. And he walked away. So about an hour later or whatever, maybe less, this guy comes in, and I see from a distance, his shirt's got somebody's face on it. It's just like a portrait. Lou tells him, you gotta go down there. He's getting diesel. So as he's walking towards me, I look at his shirt, and it's like made from the words of the Shining movie, like the script.
Oh, okay.
But it's like highlighted. You know how they change colors of words and can make pictures out of it?
Yeah.
And it's fucking Jack Nicholson's face.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a badass shirt, dude. And your eyes are just I'm drawn to the shirt, and I'm like waiting on him, and I go, is that Jack Nicholson? He's like, yeah. And he's like, you wouldn't believe how many people don't know that's Jack Nicholson. And I'm like, is that like the words from The Shining? And he's like, yeah, it's right here. And it's like, it's all the words from the script or whatever. I'm like, that's a badass shirt, man. And he's like, yeah, I fucking love Kubrick. And we had this like small, brief conversation about The Shining. Now, I don't know if that matters to most people, but I went home that night and I thought about that. Like, there's 3 separate incidents that all happened in the same evening that had to do with the moon landing.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I thought about it was when I went home, I put my key in the door, I was about to open the door, come home from my night at work, it was 1 a.m., and I looked up at the sky like I often do, and I saw it was a full moon. So, all this fucking talk about the moon, and then I come home and I look at the moon, and it's a full moon. Now, Is that just all fucking coincidence? Or is there something there? Did I make that happen? By talking about the moon landing? Did I fucking... When I saw that guy's quarter or dollar and I looked down at it and I picked it up and I looked at the picture and I thought about like, oh, it's fucking weird. They put the moon landing on one of our coins and who knows if it even happened. And I threw it in the drawer. Did I make the rest of that shit happen? With my fucking mind? Now I know that sounds crazy, but I'm gonna bring up another story real quick, okay? And then we can talk about other shit. But I'm gonna bring up the story of my children, and I know I've told this story many times. I don't know if I ever told you guys about how my mother-in-law. I was married for 12 years, have 3 kids, and not married anymore. But my mother-in-law at the time, she was going through some hard shit, and so she wanted answers to her life, and so she told me and my then wife at the time, who was pregnant with my first child, about 6 months pregnant, she's like, hey, I'm going to see a psychic tomorrow. And I was like, what? And my then wife was like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, you're doing what? I don't like psychics, soothsayers, whatever you want to call them. They freak me out. I think it's an occult thing. They freak me out. And so I was like, don't do that. Like, don't do that. And I legit tried to talk her out of it at like 22 years old. Like, how this was a really bad idea. Don't fucking do that. Like, are you crazy? You're playing with the fucking devil's powers and shit. And she's just like, I'm going. I think it'll be fun and blah, blah, blah. So the whole day I was like, I couldn't wait because she was going to work, and after work she was going to the psychic. I couldn't wait to talk to her and be like, what the fuck did that person tell you, you know? And I remember like saying something to my ex at the time, like, isn't this crazy? And she's like, I guess. Like, she wasn't really that interested. So I remember her coming home and we were outside and she's like, oh my gosh, I have to tell you what this lady told me. And at first I was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know the future. And then I was like, fuck, I have to know. So she's like, well, she told me a lot of things, but 3 things really stood out. And I don't remember the other 2 things. They weren't that important to me. But the one thing was like, what? So she told me and my then wife at the time that one of her 3 kids, which were all girls, was going to have twins. And my wife, the other 2 girls, there's only 3 girls in the family, they had never had a child, were not pregnant. My wife was. And so I was like, oh my God, we're having twins. Like, I totally bought into it. And Sarah, I didn't mean to throw her name out there, the devil spawn said, oh, well, that's weird. And I was like, no, it's true. We're going to have twins. Like, I was convinced. And she was like, well, what if it's my sisters? I'm like, well, it could be, I guess, but all the signs are that it's us, right? And then, like, 3 months went by, and, you know, you're pregnant, so there's a lot of shit going on, and so I forgot about it. And then Finn was born, and I never really even thought about it till years later. 7 years later, we had another pregnancy, and we had twins. And the other 2 girls still have not had children. And my twins were born, and it was like one night I was like just like sitting up. I was the only one awake, and I was thinking about shit, about my family and my kids and stuff, and I was like, I thought about it for the first time in years. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my God, that bitch was right.
That bitch was right. She could see the future. And to me, that's still really fucking weird. I've told this story to a few people, and they're like, oh, that's cool. Usually women have that reaction. But I'm like, no, it's fucking weird. It's not just cool. I mean, yeah, I guess it's cool, but it's like weird. So my question to you, before I go take another bathroom break, is this. Did she fucking see the future? Was it coincidence? Did the woman just go, oh, how many kids do you have? 3? Oh, one of them's gonna have twins. Or did she fucking see the future? Or, I mean, how can you see the future if it hasn't happened yet? I want to talk about that for a moment. If the future is what the future always in motion, it is like what Yoda says. So there is no set future. We make our own future through decisions. A lot of people believe that.
Well, they also said in Back to the Future 3, Doc, his little going away quote at the end. He's like, "Your future hasn't been written yet. No one's has. It's basically it's what you make of it."
Right. We're making the future as we go along. Right. And that's a very scientific, believable, even provable or plausible, I think, maybe, to a certain extent. But it's still questionable. The other question is, did that lady or our idea of this happening, did it make it happen? This goes back to what I was talking about. Because that was in my subconscious, and it was in my wife's subconscious, did it somehow alter reality because the idea was planted and it came to fruition and we had twins? Talk amongst yourselves. I gotta piss.
Go ahead, Nate. You comment on
have
that.
me tackle that issue. I would say no, because well, first of all, because a lot of the psychics and stuff, like, they even say, like, you'll see them advertised, on TV, like, California Psychics or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Call this number. It's like $3 a minute or some shit. But then you see a little disclaimer at the bottom that says, for entertainment purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really telling you right there it's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
So the whole psychic thing is, I'm a skeptic of it. Until it's absolutely proven otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it just has, like you said, it's just lucky hunch, really.
Yeah, like they've even shown in like some documentaries how to go about doing that based on selective questioning, I think is what it's called, or whatever. Like, they'll ask you a question, and then based on your response, that they would then deduce, or kind of figure out, I think that's also for like mediums too, where they talk. I could talk to dead people. You had a recent death in your family. Oh yeah, it was like, oh, was it a brother or sister or something like that? Just kind of selective questioning, and then they would answer, and then based on that, they would just kind of, oh yeah, well, I'm talking to him right now, and all this stuff, and just like.
So you guys are talking about, like, do psychics have actual powers, or is it the process of deduction?
I think it's more of the process of deduction.
I think so.
Because I was saying to him, you see commercials for like those California Psychics or something, call, it's $3 a minute or some shit. But then at the bottom you see the disclaimer that says, for entertainment purposes only.
Right.
But now I do have certain family members
that can see dead people.
that can see stuff.
No
like
shit.
that.
Talk about this for a moment, because it's interesting. It's what we're talking about, kind of.
Well, it's just like, my certain family members of mine, they are pretty in tune with their psychic ability, and they're really open about, like, seeing spirits and seeing, people who's passed on and shit. So, I really can't say I don't believe in it, and I really can say I do believe in it, because it's one of those things that's like 50-50. Like, if your own family members are telling you, and they're serious, then how do you say they're lying, So, I don't know. I think it's all about your mind.
Like, I'll tell you, like, we'll talk about this, because you've heard me talk about this, but maybe I never told Nate. One day I was over at said family member's house, and I was, like, getting ready to leave.
Isn't this the one where you were down in the basement?
No, that's
it's a different story.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was getting ready to leave, and I, the Jeff, just trying to throw his name out there. I, said, I'll see you later, Jeff, and I, shook Jeff's hand. And your mom. It's your mom.
No,
It's Ralph's mom. Ralph's mom's crazy. No, she goes, I can see your dad right now. And I look at her and I go, what? And she goes, was your dad a really tall guy? And I go, yeah, actually. And then she goes, I think I can see your dad. I just saw your dad. And I was like, stop it. And she goes, no, really, like, your dad was a tall guy with kind of like thinning hair? And I'm like, okay, yeah. And she goes, and did he wear like and I was like waiting. Did he wear like flannels a lot? And I'm like, yeah, like every day of his fucking life. But, and I immediately was like, okay, stop it, you're freaking me out. And she's like, well, no, I just was saying, like, when you shook his hand, I saw him standing behind you, like with his hand on your shoulder or something. I'm like,
get away!
Okay, shut up. Because my belief system is, I don't like hearing that shit. Like, to me, if you can see dead people, I don't want to know about it.
Right.
Good for you, but I don't want to see dead people, so I don't want to learn this power accidentally or something. I just, we won't go into it, but my belief system is like, I don't want to know. So, I was like, okay, that's enough. I don't want to know. She's like, why? And I was like, I just don't want to know. It freaked me out enough, but, you're talking about the powers of deduction. Okay, so what does she know about my dad? Have I ever said my dad was a tall man? Probably. I probably said that before around Ralph's mom, and maybe she heard me, and maybe she didn't even remember me saying that, but maybe it was in her subconscious. I know I've talked about doing construction, which my father taught me. So, most carpenters wear plaid shirts. That's not like you could deduce that. So, you could sit here and go, well, she knows X amount of information about your father. 2 + 2 = 4. She didn't really see anybody, but it was easy to kind of make those guesses. And which is what Nate's kind of talking about.
Right. I think most people will do that.
You call my mom a liar?
Most people will do that as a way to make money.
Right.
But I also think that there are some people.
She's not making shit off of it.
No, but I do think that there are certain people that are especially in tune to, for lack of a better word, different frequencies, different wavelengths. They're able to see stuff that normal people are not able to see.
I even think and it's not in me bragging at all, but I think I have a lot of intuition. Like, I'm not saying I know the future, but I just sometimes sense things before they happen. I don't even really know how to explain it. It's not like I know what's going to happen before it happens, but I don't even know how to explain it. But I just know I have a very strong intuition. Like, I can sometimes guess something that's going to happen.
Oh my God, he's got the sights!
that most people don't see. And the only reason I'm not saying it's like a gift and I'm special, but I've noticed through the years, like, if I bring it up, the majority will go, oh, I didn't think that. And if I kind of dismissed it as like, oh, everybody kind of saw that coming or thought that. Most scenarios, they don't. So I'm not saying I have psychic powers, because I don't. I've tested it. Trust me. When I was a kid, I wanted to have the Force so bad. It didn't work. No, I couldn't do anything. But I do believe, kind of like what Nate's saying, I do believe there's certain people that have stronger powers than I do, or powers of intuition, or whatever you want to call it, that they can kind of see something that the normal person cannot. I do kind of believe in some of that shit.
And I'm saying that could be some stuff that we can cover in another podcast where we talk about paranormal type of more paranormal type of stuff. Psychics and ghost hunting. That kind of stuff. With you.
Yeah, I was just thinking when I was taking a leak that this is probably a two-parter. This is probably turning into a two-part conspiracy episode. I want to tell you guys about this, and then I promise I'll shut up. I promise. I just heard this on a podcast the other night, and it blew my fucking mind. And it kind of about what we're talking about here.
Do you know the podcast?
Yeah, it's not the one you guys listen to. You want me to?
No, I was going to say shout out to...
Oh, shout out to Phoebe.
Okay.
It's a podcast with a guy from the Nerdist, Matt somebody, I can't think of his last name, and Scott Mosier, who is Kevin Smith, the director's best friend, and also does Smodcast, which is my favorite podcast. But this is him and a guy named Matt Mira, something like that, and he's on the Nerdist, which is a very popular podcast. But Phoebe, shout out to Phoebe, it's pretty awesome. But they're talking about something, and then the Matt Mira guy just brought this up, and it was mind blowing to me. And I want your opinion about this. So he was talking about a photo that exists, and they were talking about Abe Lincoln that led into this. If you guys don't know this, I'm a big Abe Lincoln fan, so I know quite a bit about Abe Lincoln. But when he died, it was a big, big deal. Like, the funeral procession was a big deal. He was, as much as you hear people like the South wanted to kill him, and they did, the people in the North loved Abraham Lincoln. I mean, obsessively. And when he died, there was a funeral procession from Washington, D.C. To New York City, I think, and then back or whatever, I don't know. But they led him on carriage from Washington, D.C. to New York. And then they actually put his fucking body on a train. You guys know about this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they put his body on a train and took it across the country. And made several stops, and they even would stop from time to time to have fucking morticians, curators, touch up the body and shit, because they had him on this train, a steam engine, for a long time. I don't know if it was a couple months or maybe it was 6 months or something like that. But anyways, the funeral procession was a big deal, and there was the funeral procession by carriage that went into New York City. And there is a photograph, and there was a photograph of the funeral procession taken from a building in New York City, and there's all these people around the streets watching it, and there's people in the buildings watching it, and you can see people in the buildings with their heads hanging out of the windows. And this guy, Matt Mira, on the podcast is talking about how, they were talking about a book about Lincoln. That in one of these pictures that exists on the internet, Theodore Roosevelt was one of the kids in his home in one of the buildings, and you can see him. How fucking weird is that? So I was like, what? So I literally paused the podcast, and I go to the internet, and I look up this picture. Theodore, I just typed in Abe Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt picture. Boom, there it is. And it's all grainy and shitty, it's a picture taken in 1865. And it's obviously it's New York City. It's taken from an apartment building. It's a higher up picture looking down upon Lincoln's carriage, horse-drawn carriage, and behind, behind and to the left, there's, of course it's circled on the picture in the internet, there's two kids, and you can't see them real well. So immediately you're like, okay, how do they know this is Theodore Roosevelt? But there's two kids in this window, and one's a little bit taller than the other, and it's supposedly Theodore Roosevelt and his older brother. Theodore Roosevelt was 6 years old. And to me, that's fucking mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. That's his 6-year-old home. If this is all true,
right,
that 6-year-old Theodore Roosevelt saw Abraham Lincoln's body, witnessed it, and I'm sure it was a big deal. His parents were probably like, yeah, that's the president. Saw this with his own eyes and still did not go, oh fuck, I'm not going to be the president. I don't want that to happen to me. And I was thinking about that, why didn't he? Did this cause him to want to be president? Do you think he ever had any inkling to be the president of the United States before 6 years old, before this moment? Or did that moment...
Do you think that moment gave him the idea, you know what, I want to be
And
president.
maybe like seeing the reverence, all these people standing on the street corners and shit with their hats off, like paying their respects. And I'm sure his parents were like, somber and like, hey kids, that's our president, that they shot. Is that the idea that made him go, wow, I want to be that important someday? Maybe I should be president. Or maybe, I thought about this too, his older brother saw the same shit. Why didn't his older brother go, hey, I want to be president? Maybe it's because at 6 years old, you're not thinking, like, I don't know how old the brother was, but let's say his brother was 10. Maybe at 6 years old, you're not thinking, holy fuck, they killed the guy. I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to go be something where somebody's trying to blow your brains out.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe the 10-year-old brother was like, he had a different perspective.
Oh, fuck this shit.
Fuck that guy. I don't want to do that. Look what they do to you when you become president. So what if Theodore Roosevelt was the older kid? And Bob Roosevelt, or whatever his fucking name is, was the younger brother, and he ends up becoming president.
Oh, if the roles were reversed.
Yeah. I don't know, it just made my mind just fucking...
Robert Roosevelt.
Right. First president.
He could have been a dick.
Right.
Could
have fucking changed. And how much of history would that have changed?
That was like that. What was it? That TV show?
Yeah, I just thought about
With
that.
Kennedy, Saving Kennedy.
Yeah. What was the name of the blimp went down? Are you talking about that?
Timeless.
No,
Timeless.
not Timeless. I'm talking
He was
about.
thinking Timeless, but...
What was that one movie? Was it 23? What was it called?
Oh, was it
Was it a-
1123... 63 or
Yeah.
1163, something like that.
Oh,
And
I
the
never-
guy goes
I-
back,
I-
saves Kennedy, and then Kennedy ended up starting like a concentration camp, and just everything went haywire after he saved
Did you
Kennedy.
see the movie?
I didn't
No.
see it. I heard my mom, she saw it, and I think Nate was talking about it.
Yeah, I think we had it at where we worked for a little
I
bit.
think I saw it too, but I'd never seen the movie.
It was like a
Yeah, right. And your mom was saying, "Oh yeah,
Mhm.
Kennedy was, all that stuff."
That shit's really interesting to me. When I see a photo like that, like, wow. Like, that photo could have shaped the next fucking 150 years. That one moment. What if they decide, let's just put him on the train, and Theodore Roosevelt never
Yeah.
stays.
What if they never went to New York?
Right.
And Theodore Roosevelt.
Or,
never
like,
saw that?
why
Would
did
he
his-
still have wanted to become president?
Right, or like, why did his parents decide well before Lincoln ever became president, or I'm assuming, or died, why did his parents decide to live in that apartment in New York City? And had they decided to live in fucking Michigan, he never sees the president's body and therefore never becomes the president. And therefore, I mean, Theodore Roosevelt did change some shit. Isn't he on...
Panama Canal.
Yeah. We have no Panama Canal.
And then we probably won't have the other Roosevelt either.
Possibly.
Yeah, they are.
Well, I know Theodore Roosevelt had a lot to do with like antitrust and
Walk softly and carry a big stick was one of those against
Breaking up corporations.
break corporations and stuff like that. Yeah.
how much would America have
Rough
changed?
Riders. There's probably no Rough Riders. That little group in World War One.
Night of the Museum would have been different.
There, Robin Williams. The
Right. I mean, it's just isn't am I wrong, or isn't Theodore Roosevelt on Mount Rushmore?
he is.
Yep.
So we would have had a different face.
So there would have been a different face up there, more than likely.
But that's
they
if
never-
that next president was as good as he was. The only reason why he's on.
Well,
Mount
but it
Rushmore.
definitely would have been someone else.
It would have been somebody else. It would not. It might not have been the person that was president
instead of
Yeah. it could
instead
be
of
somebody-
Theodore. It could have been
somebody who's in the future.
Jimmy Carter.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
You know.
It had to have been somebody else because Theodore Roosevelt was not a president in this scenario, right?
Right.
Speaking of presidents, I was watching this special on the news. This one girl did a report, and all but one president is related. All the presidents are related but one president, and they got the same, like, seventh great grandfather. They all got the same.
Who was the one?
I didn't see it. I think it might have been Trump.
Because that's my first question. Well, who's the one guy that doesn't fit the mold?
It's Trump because he was born from an orangutan.
No, that was Obama.
It's
But
a hybrid.
Hybrid. They said that all the presidents were related.
I have heard something about there's a bloodline connection. I do know for a fact.
And the
that-
great grandfather was like a king.
I do know for a fact that the Clintons and the Bushes are related.
Mm-hmm.
That you can trace their bloodlines back, and there's a relation there. And I've also read, and I don't know how accurate it is. I'm not going to state it as fact, but I also read more than once that the Bush family line can be traced back to Vlad the Impaler, where we get, which is a real guy from Transylvania. And this is where we get Dracula from. He drank blood. He was a vicious motherfucker. He impaled people's heads on sticks and left their heads out in front of his castle. Drank blood.
The inspiration for Dracula.
Yeah, basically.
He would ram people's.
He was just a vicious
Stake 'em.
motherfucker.
He
Like,
would stake them.
tortured people. He was some sort of a leader in Transylvania. I don't know if he was king or whatever, but yeah, I've heard that you can trace the Bush lineage back to that.
Which makes sense.
And it did. At the time that I read it was during George W. Bush's administration, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. But yeah, whatever you guys want to talk about, forum's wide open now.
Well, let's
I
see.
got out-
You know what? I'll throw one out. Area 51.
Area 51.
Yes.
We can talk that. I'll throw this question out to I guess to semi-religious people here.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I was thinking about this. We have on the panel Darth Payne. I'm very religious. Ralph is kind of quasi-religious. I mean, he believes, but he doesn't go to church every week. And then Nate doesn't believe in a higher power. Correct.
Correct.
So you're getting all three opinions. All right, you get a little bit of everything here.
This bed's too soft. This bed's too.
Right.
This bed.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
But anyways, go ahead.
Right.
Nate.
So I guess this would first. I would have to first off base the question: do you believe that there is other life out there in the universe?
This is an interesting
I do.
question.
I believe there is.
Okay, so my answer is a little bit not so simple. I don't know if I believe. Like, I really don't believe in higher intelligent beings. But do I believe that there might be like bugs, germs, that sort of life?
I guess I should rephrase the question. Do you believe in intelligent life?
No, I do not.
I do.
Okay, so
But I'm not convinced of this because I've gone back and forth through the years. So I'm not like, oh fuck no, there's no aliens. I'm not on a pedestal. But my quiet opinion is I don't think there is.
all right. So based on your religious quote unquote education, then you believe that God only created us. If you were to believe that God created everything, God created us, that we're the only intelligent creatures that He created.
Well, no. But I'll explain to you what I mean by that.
Right.
I believe in angels. I believe that there are... Okay, so through my religious teachings, I believe that there were angels before there were people. And I also believe that some of those angels became bad angels, which is what we now call demons. So I believe in human beings as the ultimate higher intelligent life form on Earth, but I also believe in intelligent life that does not necessarily exist on Earth or in this realm. I don't know how to explain, like, okay, so where does an angel live? I don't know. I'm not trying to tell you I know that, and it doesn't say in the Bible where they live at. It doesn't say. I've never been told by anyone through all my years of religious teachings, oh, this is where the angels live. I mean, you hear they live in heaven. But what is heaven? I don't know. I don't know what heaven is. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, heaven is what the Bible tells you, because there are some descriptions in the Bible, and I don't necessarily believe that they're literal. I kind of think they're more metaphorical. Like in the Bible, there's some talk about like streets of gold. I don't think there's literal metal in heaven. I think to me, that's very hard to understand or comprehend. Could I be wrong? Yeah, could be literal. But my belief, Nate, is I don't, and it ties into like, okay, aliens. I believe aliens are angels or demons. I do believe there's something out there that people can sometimes see and have seen, but I don't think they come from Mars or Venus or another galaxy. My belief system is I think there's other higher powers out there, and people have seen them, but they're not little gray men.
Okay, so you don't believe in the Roswell crash. You believe there was a weather balloon.
I don't believe in
that crashed.
I don't believe it. I don't believe in the Roswell crash, but I do believe that they're hiding shit in Area 51.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at. The whole basis about our surrounding Area 51 was based on the fact that the crashed Roswell craft eventually made its way to Area 51. That they have alien technology that they're storing there. They have crashed UFOs that they're storing there, and they're reverse engineering the spacecraft into vehicles and weapons that we, I guess, eventually will use sometime. But they're keeping hush hush about it. The entire area of Area 51 is off limits to the public.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking the complete area around it and the entire airspace over going all the way up into the upper stratosphere is a complete no-fly zone. So
right.
and they have tested a lot of. They tested the F-111 stealth fighter there. They did a lot of the testing there. They do a lot of military testing there, which is understandable, but a lot of the secrecy, a lot of the former employees that come out of there say, yeah, they're hiding aliens there. A lot of people who used to work there mysteriously die when they are said to go public. A lot of them die because of they're exposed to either radiation or some type of chemicals there that are not readily found on this planet. Just a lot of weird stuff surrounding Area 51 and the supposed Area 52.
Okay, before you get into that, I'm curious.
Up there too.
Because you and I differ about spirituality and that belief system. So, like,
Right.
do you believe... What do you believe about Area 51? You believe there was a crash?
I believe something crashed. There's something crashed enough to where it has involved a military cover-up from, I want to say, 1947 was the Roswell crash.
It was July 7th, 1947.
July 7th, 1947? Right. From then, and then we have multiple UFO sightings all around the world, varying from the traditional saucer shapes to the infamous flying black triangle that was seen over San Diego. Don't quote me on that, but it was saw by a bunch of people, and it was I think that's the one I'm thinking of, was the Phoenix Lights. There's like a series of like 9 lights or whatever, and it was in the shape of a triangle, and it didn't make a sound, and it was just flying over. Everybody saw it, and then it's just dismissed. Like, oh, well, we were doing military exercises or something like that, or it was a B-2 stealth bomber. Yeah. You know, they just kind of readily wear it away, and everybody's like, yeah, but it didn't make a sound.
Now, I do believe in UFOs. Now, if you go by, like, what...
Well, the traditional UFO is an unidentified flying object. You can't
I do not believe...
identify it.
Right. I do not believe that UFOs are alien ships from other worlds. But I do believe in UFOs. I do believe there's shit up in the sky that is unexplainable. That, to the limited knowledge that we have, I'm going to bring this up because I've only told my good friend in Los Angeles. This happened, actually, like a couple weeks ago. I saw something. Let me explain. Because I've lived 39 years, and people ask me this question. You ever see a UFO? No. Like I there's a couple of things in the sky over the years that I was usually fucked up when I saw it. So that right there is an easy explanation. Like, okay, you were intoxicated or whatever. But, you know, through the years, 39 years, do I believe, have you ever seen a UFO? I wish I could say yes, but no. 2 weeks ago, I was sitting outside, maybe 3 weeks ago, I was sitting outside in the front yard. It was, like, late at night, and, yeah, I might have been slightly under the influence, but not, I was not drunk, I was slightly under the influence, and I'll leave it at that. Very much in my right mind still. And I was sitting outside, and I like to look at the stars. I do. I like looking up at the sky. And I was just kind of like looking up there, and I saw what looked like a shooting star, but it was bigger than a shooting star. Like if a shooting star is like the size of barely bigger than a pinpoint or star. This was the size of like 2 or 3 stars put together. It was really bright, like it was white bright almost, and it shot across the sky really fast, and then disappeared for just a millisecond, and then reappeared a little bit further in the sky, and continued to like shoot away, and then I didn't see it. And it was really, it all happened in a matter of like 1/1000. It was all like that fast. And a shooting star, you know, it looks like a star, right?
Yeah, shooting star just shoot across the sky and that's it.
Right.
It goes in one direction. It doesn't go back in the other direction.
Right. It didn't go backwards. It was moving forward, but it moved forward and it disappeared, and then reappeared in the same. It was moving in the same direction, but it disappeared for a moment, and it was further down in the sky. It was further in the sky when it reappeared. Like if I was looking at the sky and I saw like a 12-inch view of with my eyes, it moved across the sky for like 4 inches, disappeared for an inch, and reappeared again an inch later.
Right.
And then it was gone. And then I kind of kept my focus on like where it ended, like hoping like I would see it move across the sky again. I did not. And I watched kind of in the sky. I watched for like a good 5 minutes or so. And then I looked periodically back and forth while I was out there. Didn't see anything else. But it was super bright. It was really bright. It wasn't like it lit up the sky, but it was like white bright. You know, it was like almost like it was closer. It looked like a shooting star in a lot of ways, but it was way closer than any shooting star that I had ever seen. It was bigger. It appeared bigger and brighter. And I remember like kind of smiling like, that was something. That was definitely something. And while I kept my eyes fixed on where it disappeared, immediately after that, there was a plane. And I thought about the plane, like as it was traveling and the light was flashing, like they had to have seen that, right? If you're the pilot, and I saw it from Earth very clearly from just sitting in a chair, if you're up in the sky, you fucking saw that. I know you did. And I started thinking about, like, how often does that happen? And are the pilots, is that normal to a pilot? Like, they see shit like that all the time, and they're just told when you become a pilot, you're going to see shit up there, and you're not allowed to talk about it. And then you're probably like, what do you mean? And they're like, that's the end of it. We're not going to tell you anymore. If you don't want to be a pilot, fine, that's on you, but we don't know. We're not allowed to know. But there's definitely shit up there you're going to see, and it's not going to hurt you or nothing. But you're going to see shit, and you're not allowed to, like, announce it to the general populace. You're not allowed to, like, I mean, you guys can talk about it when you land, whatever, but you're not allowed to go to a reporter. You know, you're not allowed to go to the television.
Well, that's like some of the NASA photos, NASA photos that they release, where you see a black object that's just like following like the space station or following the satellite that they're working on, and then NASA edits the photos where you don't see anything. Like there have been reports of a city, or like a small city on one of the craters on the moon that was captured by NASA. I want to say Apollo 11 or something, or one of the Apollo missions. They captured an image of it, and then NASA rubbed it out, and then they released it to the public. And oh yeah, it's just a crater, you know, and all this stuff, you know. So there's a lot of that. Another one is the famous face on the Mars.
Yeah,
the Mars face.
That's weird. Don't you think that's weird?
Yeah, it is a little weird.
That's pretty weird. I remember seeing that image years ago when I was younger and thinking that's fucking weird. That like, I've heard people explain that like, oh, it's just shadows. Like you're looking at a really far away picture of a mountain or a couple mountain ranges or whatever, and because of the shadows, it just appears to be a face. I don't know, man. Like, our brains are wired to see faces. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about? Like, you can pick up a human face from, like, you know, if you're looking at the clouds and you can see certain shapes, but you never see a face. If you see a face, it's a very fucked up looking face.
Like you know, we watched, you know, Rogue One, obviously. That scene in Rogue One where you see that giant statue.
You immediately see.
And if you were to cover all of that up, except just the face.
Right.
It could be an entire fucking statue on Mars, and, you know, it always sees the head.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I just think our brains are wired to see human faces. And that's why, when you look at that picture, I've looked at that picture many times, it looks like a face. It does. It looks very much like a face. It looks like a face, like kind of like the Sphinx. Kind of like a face that someone would have carved. To me.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a photograph of a human. It looks like a carved image.
Right.
To me. And of course, hey, do we know it's a fucking picture of Mars? We don't know. We don't. We've just been told that, right? And we buy into it because we don't have any other proof. But like, okay, so I don't believe in aliens. So, you know, like what happened to me a couple weeks ago, you know, how do I explain that, right? If I don't believe in aliens, well, what the fuck was that? So, you can carry on with Roswell, but like, I won't go into it too deep, but the way that Jeremy explains that is, like I said, religiously I believe in spirits, I believe in angels, I believe that there were some angels who became bad angels, which became demons, and the story of the Bible says that Lucifer was the one that caused all this, and he was the head angel, and he took a third of the angels with him. He convinced a third of the angels that God was wrong, blah, 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 and they rebelled. And, of course, there was a war, and God threw those angels out of heaven, banished them. Where did he send them? Don't know. The Bible doesn't really go into detail about where he put them, but almost 40 years old, thought about this a lot, and honestly, I would probably say half of my life I believed in aliens, even though I've always believed in God. Because you can believe in God and believe in aliens. You can just easily explain it like, well, maybe they have a Bible. You know, maybe each creation of God's higher intelligence, He gave them each a Bible. I mean, that's easily explainable. You don't have to not believe in aliens if you believe in God. But this is the way I explain it 40 years into my life. I believe, and it kind of centers around a lot of my beliefs, conspiracy theories and whatnot. I believe there are demons, and I do believe that they're real, and I believe they were punished, banished, and they were put somewhere. And hell, I don't know if it's hell, I don't know if it's hell or if it's somewhere else, but wherever it is, they don't want to be there. It's not home. They don't want to be. It's punishment. So I believe that demons, wherever they exist, in a perception or a reality we cannot see, are continually, always trying to get the fuck out. That's my belief system. That they want out of wherever they're at, and they can't come back to heaven. So what's the next best thing to heaven? Earth. Because we were made in the image of God. God's creation is on earth. So it's got a little touch of heaven on it. And I think that they want to get to earth or get into our reality. But God, let's see, if lack of a better term, God put like a force field up, right? But there's cracks in the force field. That maybe we have created, man has created, through things we've done through the years, through science or whatever, and they exploit these cracks, and they try to get through. And that's my explanation of some, not everything, but some of what people see in the sky. I personally believe they're spirits that are trying to break through to the other side, for the lack of a better term. And we catch a glimpse of them, if we're lucky, once in a while, because they're fighting really hard to get into this reality, and maybe they can get in, but then they can't stay here or whatever. It's hard to exist in this reality because of the limitations or rules that God has set upon them. And again, Nate's looking at me like, you fucking crazy asshole! You're crazy, you believe in fairy tales! But that's totally cool, and I respect Nate's. I do. I respect your belief system, and many people that do not believe what I believe. I don't hate anybody, and I will hear you out. I will. I've always been open-minded like that. But that's my... Somebody sees a UFO, that's what Jeremy thinks. You saw a spirit. Ralph, how do you feel about UFOs? You ever see one?
Personally, no, I've never seen one. But there's too many eyewitnesses and too many abductees and too many stories to say, oh, they're all lying, they're all crazy.
They're all crazy, right? And then when you add in the added effect of, well, somebody's seen a UFO, I'm gonna go tell somebody about it, and then like the next day, a couple of dark dressed individuals show up and say, no, you're not going to talk about this. And a lot of the descriptions we're saying and a lot of them are consistent. And pretty much all of them are consistent.
The little gray men with big heads, big eyes. I mean, that is a...
Right, like they look human, but they don't act human. Like, they're very robotic in how they talk. They're pale. They're wearing sunglasses all the time. They're just...
Right. I mean, I've had dreams. I've had dreams of aliens. Like, in my dreams. Not that I could sit here and tell you, like, oh, this is what happened. But I remember I've had dreams about aliens. But, like, now, I don't know what I felt then. Because, like I said, my belief system has changed through the years. But now I look back at those dreams and I go... Okay, so if there's no aliens, then why did you have that dream? Well, again, I kind of believe that it's spiritual. That kind of like how we were talking about, like a combined belief system. Like there's a power behind that. Like if everybody thinks the same thing, it can almost become real. And I think kind of like that's my best explanation for, okay, where does the little gray men with the big eyes and big heads and long fingers come from? Well, it's in every fucking movie about aliens, first of all. I don't know. To me, like, I think it's a spiritual thing. And I think that people just cohesively... But I'm not saying I'm right. I don't know. I have no idea. I do think there's something weird about our technology. Like, you're talking about Area 51, and a lot of people believe, like, the crash, that we have kind of backwards engineered some of the technology we found on an alien spacecraft or whatever, or on the alien, or maybe we even fucking tortured them until they told us their secrets or something. One thing I remember my dad talking to me about, because my dad believed in aliens, cold fusion. I remember my dad talking to me about cold fusion, and I still do not understand. I'm not a scientist. I do not really understand what cold fusion is, but I guess there's some evidence that we've been trying to create a UFO, a flying saucer.
Yeah.
That the government has been trying to make one, and my dad fully believed that they had operational flying saucers. My dad believed that, and that they used them, and he believed that's what people saw. Is that he probably believed in the crash, and we never really talked about if he believed in the crash. But he did believe that the government had UFO flying saucers, and that's what people were seeing when they saw UFOs.
See, I just feel like if something did crash at Roswell, what are the chances of us going to the moon in less than 20 years from that date, or breaking the sound barrier, or finding, just anything, It's like as soon as Roswell happened, like a whole new world happened.
Computer was invented.
The computer was invented.
Like either right after that or a few years after that.
Shortly after that. I think early 50s,
We went to the moon. We fucking broke the sound barrier. We broke the speed of light.
Television came around at about that time.
We did all that. In Russia and China, they tried, they tried numerous times trying to get off the ground, but they never did. And it makes you think like if Russia or if
Russia was the first to actually put somebody in orbit.
In space, right.
That's right. They did.
We were the first to land on the moon.
Right.
If
you believe
if
that.
you believe that, which I do.
Yeah?
I do.
I do not believe it.
You don't believe it.
I do. I strongly do not.
Strongly do believe it.
See, I feel like we did go to the moon, but what we found had to erase a lot of what we
found Transformers.
Let's talk about this, because this is interesting. We all have three varying opinions about the moon landing, and I think it's a really interesting subject to me, because like I said, I strongly do not believe in it, but I didn't always feel that way. But I think
what changed your mind? At least you said that you didn't always not believe it, but what changed your mind?
There is one thing. Now, there's been several things throughout the years that made me go, and I can bring those things up, and they're valid.
Mm-hmm.
But there is one thing that just happened recently. So I strongly believe this just happened within the last couple years. My opinion just became much stronger. NASA recently announced that all of the footage is gone.
got recorded over.
Yeah. This is a fact. NASA said, did they say recorded over it or lost it?
They recorded over it because
I thought maybe most of the footage was lost through the years, and then we recorded over.
The Apollo 11 mission got recorded over from like the videos that we had on the moon. You know how they recorded shit and stuff.
Yeah, the one small step for man.
Yeah, that. But the original got recorded over because they said back in the day they didn't have all the access to recorders and shit like that. So
Fuck
they just
you.
used-
Fuck you.
They used
Fuck you, you
Apollo
bunch of
11,
liars.
They used Apollo
Fuck
11,
you.
Apollo 12.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. That right there is some pretty compelling evidence that, wait a minute. If you had footage of this, it's not just like a great moment in American history.
It's a historic moment.
It's in humankind, in all of mankind. This is one of the biggest achievements of all generations. And you fucking recorded over it?
Now, that's not to say that it could have legitimately been recorded over. Let's not forget that from I want to say, what, 69?
People are stupid
to
as
9?
fuck.
There's probably some fucking intern that'll go get some tape or something. Oh, yeah, okay. And he's watching the tape on his break or some shit, and then some asshole hits record or something. They're going to record over it for something.
I do not deny for a second that people are dumb as fuck. Yes, they are. They definitely are. And I'm not trying to be an asshole.
And I'm not saying that's what happened,
right,
but it's possible. It's feasible.
But let me put your mind on this. I went to Washington, D.C. I've been there a few times. I went when I was a senior in high school, and we went into the Library of Congress, and one of them, I remember this very vividly. One of the main things I remember about that trip was the Constitution. We went into this building, and I saw the Constitution under this glass, and there was this sign, and it said blah, 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 blah about the Constitution when it was written, blah, 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 and it said, it is encased, and it started to talk about, this is the actual Constitution. Mm-hmm. And if anything ever happened, they built a fucking hole in the ground underneath this building, a vault, a security vault. And if anything happened...
I think they had that in National Treasure.
It's true. It's a real thing. It drops like 600 feet or something into the ground, into this completely sealed vault, and it will live on forever. It's like... So, that's pretty important only to the United States. It doesn't fucking matter to Russia or China. That piece of paper doesn't matter one iota to them, really. I mean, I guess a little bit it does, because it's the formation of our country, which affects them, but... doesn't matter to them. To us, it's like paramount. And we made sure that motherfucker has been preserved, even in a time of like when people talk about like the 1800s and shit, and they didn't have this and they didn't have that. Well, somehow we preserved that fucking thing for 300 years. And it's still there. And we have taken precautions because we didn't want to lose it. So, that's my argument against, no man, there had to be one holy grail copy where they were like, I'm sorry, but nobody gets to touch this one, nobody gets to fuck with it. We are putting it in a safe place so it can be preserved for all time.
But there's also that, but NASA has also faced a litany of budget cuts from then. I think even till now, where the lure of space, where we stopped going to space for some reason, which is another
another
thing,
topic that Jeremy can
right
talk
there.
about.
But
I think it's fucking crazy. I do.
Right.
I think it's nuts.
Yeah, and then now we're talking about we're going to go to Mars. Why?
Think about this, dude. 'Cause I had this thought, and I was like, that's fucking crazy, dude. We have somewhere in this country, there are at least 3 space shuttles just sitting there. They're just sitting there.
I think Enterprise?
Columbia and Challenger blew.
Challenger blew up.
Challenger blew up. Columbia
was, I think, just retired.
Well, there was the one that came and blew up.
I thought Enterprise was one.
One blew up on re-entry, and I can't remember which one that was. I thought it was Columbia, but I might be wrong.
There was one that was...
Remember the one that was coming back?
Oh shit, that's right.
So 2 of them for sure are gone.
The one in 2003, that one lifted up, but
there was a Discovery, there was a
crashed.
Challenger. Discovery, Challenger, Columbia.
I thought there was an Enterprise.
I'm positive there was 4. There might have been 5, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, there was 4. So 2 of them are gone. At least, I mean, we know for sure. So at least 2 space shuttles, maybe 3, are sitting somewhere in a fucking building for the past 5 years or longer, and they don't use them anymore. They are airplanes that can travel to other places in space, and we just decided one day, we can't afford that. Mm-hmm. Bullshit! I call bullshit. We can't afford it? Wait a minute. But we can afford
building a colony on Mars. They're talking about
right.
now.
We can afford all this other bullshit. We can afford the HARP project in Alaska, but we can't afford to send the space shuttles into flight anymore. So we're just gonna sit them in a building. What? Like Nate said, that's a whole nother conversation, because NASA, quote unquote, putting the space program into retirement doesn't make any sense to me.
And how long has the International Space Station been in orbit? What and like
Long
what? I would
time.
say a long ass time. What?
Mhm.
What was the point?
What's it doing?
What was the point?
Yeah,
of
what
it?
is the point?
You know,
The
I know we
more-
keep sending people up there. A lot of countries keep sending people up there.
Well, we've had it so
For
long.
what?
Why didn't you turn it into some condos by now, right?
Right.
Like, why
Well,
didn't you
that
just-
one space shuttle they shipped off to Mars? And 20 years ago, that thing's about landed now.
Well, they sent a robot
Mhm.
to Mars, but they didn't send a space shuttle and just leave it there.
Mm-mm.
No.
Because that was the awesome thing about the space shuttle, is like you could send it somewhere and bring it back, unlike a rocket. A rocket goes up and then doesn't come back down. It has to come back down in a different form.
But because I
I mean,
think travel.
Think about that, guys. We invented a space airplane, and they sit in a garage now.
and
What the fuck? That's like...
And
I
we
mean,
get-
it's not quite on the level, but almost. That's like saying, oh, there's a DeLorean, and we just, we don't have enough money to fuel the
Yeah.
flux capacity
Right,
anymore.
and we did a lot of time traveling, but we just can't do it anymore.
Yeah, we just retired it. It's
It's
in
just
the garage.
just sitting somewhere.
Bullshit!
It's
Somebody
it's,
would use it.
it's sitting in some mine shaft somewhere, you know, waiting to be uncovered.
I think they're still using the space shuttle. Why would you stop using it? It doesn't make any sense, because people go, well, they proved it to be unsafe. No, they didn't. How many trips did they make with the motherfucker, and only 2 times it blew up? That's still pretty fucking... Think about, like, people get in a car, and they drive it, and every day you go back and forth to work, you go shopping, blah, 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 and you don't get in an accident, and then one day you get in an accident, and you survive it, and everybody survives. You don't go, oh, well, I'm never driving again.
Right, I'm just gonna park in the garage and that's it. I'll walk now.
The car survived, but I'm just gonna park it now and not do anything with it. Even though it takes me everywhere I want to go, usually nothing happens. But because it did one time, now I'm not gonna use it. Bullshit! That's bullshit. They made hundreds of missions. Hundreds, if not thousands. I mean, there could have been missions they didn't tell the public about.
True.
And then twice it blew up, and they go, oh, well, it's not working anymore. It's not cost effective, and back to the drawing board. So we're just going to retire these other 2 and park them.
Right.
Bullshit, dude. I call bullshit.
You know, and I remember before it'd be on the news. Oh, the Space Shuttle Discovery is going to take off and it's going to launch a new satellite, or the Space Shuttle Columbia is going to take off and repair the Hubble telescope.
Right. Well, lots of times they would...
We don't hear that anymore.
Right. Lots of times
Why?
they would send it to fix the mirror, or put something on the mirror.
Now, granted,
The space station.
that these, I want to say the XO1 and like the XO2 or something, these new type of spacecraft, this reusable spacecraft that they can take off and they can go up into space and then come back down.
But where are they?
That are being
Where are they?
Well, Richard Branson, first off, is I guess co-financed it or whatever. So the guy from fucking Virgin Mobile it created this fucking
I
spacecraft
heard
where
that
he
too.
rents out for a couple of
I heard that
$100,000.
I heard it was made.
It is made.
Where is it then?
They've
Has anyone seen a picture of it?
I've seen it.
You've seen a picture
Yeah.
of it. Have you seen a picture of it in the sky or just sitting there?
I've actually, well, I've seen it landing.
You have? Like
And
a video?
Yeah. I've seen it land. I've seen it.
I have never seen a video. I've heard about this ship, this craft.
And they've talked about, oh, you want to go to space? It's $250,000.
I heard that
You can
years
go
ago.
up into space.
Right, that they were going to start doing like commercial flights.
Yeah.
And that never happened.
I don't think it's widespread. I don't know
Oh,
if
you think the rich and elite are doing it?
I think the rich and elite are doing it.
Maybe
And that,
the
you and
reason
me,
why.
aren't gonna fucking
Right.
go into space.
Right, but let's say like Tom Cruise is like, I want to go.
If Tom Cruise wants to go into space, he has to get a hold of Richard Branson. He can go up into space.
But okay, so Tom Cruise getting on a space flight, that's news, right? So they would talk about that, right? It would be on TV. Tom Cruise went to space. Richard Branson was in the plane too, and blah blah blah. Like, I've never heard anything like that. So if Tom Cruise did go to space, is it something like he's like they're told you can't talk about it? You think? Well, we have this thing, and for $1 million you can go, but you can't talk about it.
Well, I think it's actually been talked in public, as far as the vehicle. It's been in papers, it's been in publications, it's been talked about. I think
seen a
Richard Branson
picture of
himself
it.
has talked about it too.
I've seen a picture of it in.
I just don't know if it's 100% ready to go. Like, I think it's still in the testing phase. Like, I don't know if they're 100% ready to do it, but it's getting really, really close.
See, but that goes to show you, like, even the rich and the elite can go, and they can fabricate the story on what they saw and what it was like.
Right.
And then come back down to Earth and tell us, oh yeah, it's space, it's nothing really there. But then they could have saw fucking.
You know, I mean, there's also a theory out there that there's orbital shipyards up there, and we're building a space fleet
That's what I heard.
with space marines. You know, out there.
I've heard the theory about we built the whole point of the moon missions, if they were true, was to build a missile base on the moon. And
possible.
I don't rule it out. Like I said, I don't know for sure if we went or not, but I'm curious because someone who does believe in the moon landing.
Moon landing.
All right. So question number one, you believe in it. So why did we never go back, Nate? Why did it just... Technology has improved 100-fold.
Right.
Why would we not go back?
That's the question.
I think
I don't
we
know
did go
why.
back because we
Like, it's
went-
very illogical. You have to admit that.
Unless Apollo 11's real mission was to scout possible strategic locations if this missile base is to be believed.
And they figured
that
out
they
they
were
couldn't-
scouting out because they had the moon rover up there. They
Right.
went around. They could have been scouting for locations. Oh, okay, we found this spot. Oh, okay, we take off. Everybody, oh, Apollo 11, everybody's all this. Meanwhile, there's probably another launch going on.
Mhm.
Or everybody's going to be distracted by something else, and we're going to start shipping off stuff to the moon. We're just going to be building shit up there.
I think that's what Apollo 13 might have been.
That could have been too, because Apollo 13 was supposed to land on the moon, and something happened.
Was there a 12? Was there Apollo 12?
That's a good question.
Because you don't ever hear
Wasn't Apollo 12 the one in Apollo 13 that it blew up in a training accident?
I think that was Apollo 1.
Might have been Apollo 1.
Because I think Apollo 1 was the one where
That was a conspiracy too, right there.
the latch malfunctioned. They couldn't get out, and they basically burned alive on the launch pad, and they couldn't get out.
And that's conspiracy too, because the one guy,
Huh? For real?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like they were getting ready to launch, and there was a malfunction, and a fire broke out in the capsule. And the astronauts tried to get out, and there was a malfunction with the door latch, and it wouldn't open up, so they basically burned alive in there.
And this is like common knowledge?
Yeah.
yeah, and I think what happened was
Wow,
the
what
two
a
guys.
horrible death.
What
Yeah.
was it? It was something about that I seen that there was 2 guys, and then there was a third one, and the third one believed in all this alien shit and everything like that, and he was going to tell the world what he found. And before that happened, that's when they killed off the whole crew. They wanted just to kill him off, but
Of Apollo 1?
if that was, if that's what it was.
Yeah, I believe it was Apollo 1.
But I feel like we did go to the moon in Apollo 11, found shit that we couldn't record, went back down to Earth, and then the American people was so desperate or was so excited about us going to Earth or Mars that we had to fake the moon landing in a Hollywood studio, and that's where Stanley Kubrick comes in. But I really think that we did go to the moon, but we saw shit that we weren't supposed to see, and we weren't allowed to come back anymore.
Right.
And that's why we never went back. So we went back to Earth, and Stanley Kubrick filmed it.
That actually is a pretty good explanation.
That's an interesting...
It is an interesting explanation.
Not bad.
It would actually prove us both right. We actually did go to the moon,
Mm-hmm.
but there was something up there that we shouldn't see or we weren't allowed to see.
So then they faked
And so, like, we can't use that footage, but we gotta show them something.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where
Was that
Apollo...
Coast to Coast? Did you hear that on Coast to Coast?
Yeah.
Shout out to Coast to Coast.
That's right.
Yeah, we got to
Apollo
shout out.
13 could have been the scouting crew that went up there just to scout out, and then, well, we're not going to make it to the moon, but we're going to tell everybody we're going to the moon, but we're going to have a malfunction on...
Oh, and then there was really no malfunction.
There was really no malfunction. It was just saying it just... So, because we can't go to the moon anyway, we're not going, but we just need to see what's going out in space.
Well, there's a fucking colony on the dark side of the moon
That's
that
what
we
I'm
don't
thinking.
even know about.
Again, I understand. I think I'm a smart guy, but then I think about shit and I go, you don't even understand the simplest shit. I don't understand why there's always a dark side of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even get that. Like, is it always the same side?
We always see the
Well,
same
no,
side.
I mean,
Is
you
the dark
figure-
side always the dark side?
Yeah,
Because
it's
we're
not-
rotating, but the moon is not, right? The moon's not rotating. It's not spinning. It's traveling around us, but it's not spinning.
No, I don't think the moon rotates.
But we're rotating.
But we rotate.
So that would mean
so
that-
the moon moves with us, I think.
And that would mean
We're not scientists, so
Right.
if we're
If
wrong,
you're laughing at us,
don't blast
fuck you.
us.
Fuck
But
you.
I don't think the moon turns.
Which would mean we'd always see the same side.
Right. Which means there's always a dark side
That's what I thought, and to me,
on the
that's
same side.
right. And to me, that's really weird because think about it, if you were a scientist or you were the government and you had scientists at your disposal telling you shit, and they explain this to you that the public can't see that other side. Oh, really? So if you wanted a hideout to where no one could ever see what the fuck you were doing, nobody. Unless they actually got on a fucking spaceship and traveled there, which is really far-fetched, then that would be the perfect hiding spot to do some nefarious shit.
Right, which is kind of the plot of what is it, Transformers: Dark Side of the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Apollo? Was it Apollo
It
11?
was Apollo 11.
It was Apollo 11. They did the whole thing. Whoa, big small step. Okay, and we're clear. And then their real mission began.
I barely remember that movie.
Yeah, their
but-
real mission began. They went over to all these craters, and then they saw all of all the Transformers and stuff. There was a crashed Transformer ship
on the
on the dark side of the moon, and so they went in to investigate it, and they found dead Transformers in there and everything, and of course then the
See, another thing I never
Took off
understood
from
was
there.
when we saw the footage of them being on the moon, why does the moon look so small? And you can see the curvature of the moon, but it's so far away. You would think that it would be the moon is a lot bigger than what it is if we can see it from Earth.
I agree. I mean, you're a believer in the moon landing. Have you ever watched those videos, and studied them? Really just looked at the images or even the pictures
I mean, you
Of
can see
what,
no
Apollo
stars
11?
or
of the astronauts on. I've studied
not
them.
in a real. I mean, I haven't studied them. No.
I've studied them, and the more I look at them, the more fake they look. The more I really study it and hard look. But then again, I might be projecting my own ideas onto it. I'm not.
I mean, that could be too, but let's also keep in mind that we're also used to technology today.
Right.
Technology back then was still kind of in its infancy almost. I mean, we're talking about talking about recording from space.
Right, that's another thing is like, why did we never go back? Look at the fucking technology we have now. Like, I once heard this thing about the technology that took the men of Apollo 11 to the moon compared to the technology in our cell phones. That the technology...
Our cell phone could power, like, the lunar lander.
Yeah, like the technology in our cell phones that we carry around every day and don't think twice about. That the cell phone is like 10,000 times more advanced than the entire capsule was that they rode in.
Yeah, I believe it.
I mean, like, the number, I don't remember the number exactly, but the amount of, like, the way they were comparing it, it's like comparing the first wheel to CERN. I mean, it's like that much. And we made it there with just the first wheel. And now we have, like, CERN. So why would we not, like, easily go, no, I'm just going to program a pod to go travel to the moon and you know, like, that technology is pretty much there, almost. If not, it is, and we just don't know about it, and the government knows about it.
Right.
Why would we not go back? If the technology has made leaps and bounds to where it would be easier to go back, and it wouldn't be so life-risking.
And you know what? And that's a question that should be asked.
Yeah, but
why are we not going back to the moon?
I ask that question. Nobody cares.
Right, I mean...
I find it's very, like, if you bring this up to people, most people will be like, I don't give a fuck about that. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't pertain to my life right now, I don't give a fuck about it. And a lot of people are that way.
Yeah, I don't care about that. What about the new Taylor Swift song? Oh, yeah.
Right. Exactly. Like, you know, the conversation about the Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt photo. So I was at work last night, and I brought it up to Pam and Lou. And I even said, now, most time women don't care about history, so you probably won't think this is anything, before I even said it to them. And when I told them the story, they were just like, huh. Like, I said, you don't find that interesting? And Lou, who's loudmouth and opinionated, is like, wow, yeah, it's interesting, but, you know, like, it's not something that really interests me. And I was like, yeah, of course, because it's his story, not her story. History.
Right.
And I find that to be true, man, that most women, if it ain't happening in their life right now, or it's in the distant future, I don't give a fuck about that. Tell me when it gets here.
Right.
That's usually the way, if you try to tell your wife or your girlfriend, hey, did you hear about this fucking thing that's going to happen or might, yeah. No, it's really interesting, isn't it? If it happens, tell me and remind me, and then I'll think about it then. Like, I'll consider it then, but until then, I don't give a shit.
Right.
Don't you find that to be pretty true?
Yeah, either that or they'll be like, oh, that's interesting, or whatever, just kind of...
And that's that. They don't go...
Right.
They don't go into it like a man does, necessarily.
Yeah, that's crazy, you know? Like,
it's crazy because
means... blah, 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 blah.
Right.
You're like, oh, that's interesting.
If it's crazy to them, they just chalk it up as crazy, and they move forward. They go,
but God help you if something happened bad at work. Let me tell you about this bitch. You know, and it's like, and then you'll be sitting there for the next 45 minutes telling about how bad this person was to you. It's like,
do you know what I mean? You get what I'm saying?
You get it? You alright? Are you listening?
Yeah.
Are you quit playing on your phone?
I hear you, baby. Totally. You're right. That's crazy shit. It's crazy. But hey, what do you feel about the moon landing? What are we talking about the moon landing for?
Are you not listening to me?
You're not even listening to me. I just told you what this bitch did at work today. You're talking about something that happened 40 years ago.
Why don't you listen to me?
Yeah. And again, we love women. We love women.
Fuck women. I'm just playing.
It's just like, I don't know.
It's crazy to think that this government could be lying to us.
It would be surprising.
No, it wouldn't. But I don't know.
Yeah. It's
Crazy.
yeah, it's crazy.
Crazy.
Crazy guys.
Crazy talk. I don't know if you ask Steve, he's the first man to walk on the moon. I walked on the moon.
That Neil Armstrong, that bitch stepped shotgun. I was the first one on there.
I was there with Lance Armstrong.
I was doing my cheesehead. I was like, go Packers.
It wasn't Lance Armstrong, it was Neil Armstrong. Oh, I don't care, you know.
Whatever that bitch was.
Louis Armstrong, Lance Armstrong.
We didn't really go to the moon because they proved he was on steroids.
He only got one testicle.
It wasn't real, Ralph. He only got one testicle.
Everybody knows you need 2 testicles.
Lance
in
Armstrong
space.
did not bicycle to the moon, Ralph.
It was Louis Armstrong.
He wore a trumpet all the way to the moon back.
I want to play my Packers flag, but they won't let me.
I was gonna go to the moon. They told me I couldn't put a Packers flag up there. I was like, fuck you guys. You know what I mean, White Wow. Anyways, shit, we're 2.5 hours into this. I told you it's a 2-parter. It's a two.
Yeah.
Let's just decide on. We'll bring it back. This has been a fun. It's been enjoyable.
Do you want to wrap this up with the Michigan Minute?
Yeah. Yes.
Michigan is playing tomorrow.
Yes. Let's talk about part 2 of conspiracy theories. Will be continued next week. Hopefully next week. Hopefully next week we all have
depending on our schedules.
the ability to podcast at the same time.
I hope so.
And we'll try to pick up back at the moon landing because that shit's fascinating to me.
Yes.
But yeah, the Michigan Minute or Maize and Blue Minute or whatever the fuck we decide to call it here in the future.
The Mason Minute. There we go. We'll just
The
call it
Mason
the
Minute.
Mason Minute. For a quick recap of last week's game.
Whoop whoop! Go blue!
Yes, Michigan
Go blue.
did win. I think out of all of our predictions, I think I was the closest.
Yeah.
I predicted 41-14. Final score was 33-17. Would have been 39-17, which really would have put me right in the...
And really, on
There.
paper...
They only scored 3 points. The
Yeah.
offense did.
Yeah.
The 14 points, unfortunately, came off of 2 back-to-back pick sixes.
Yeah, if not for our fuck-ups,
but-
on paper it would have looked like a...
It would have been a complete domination. Well, I mean, it still was a complete domination. Florida's offense couldn't get anything going. Our defense was just all over them, just snuffed out. We held them to 11 yards rushing the whole game. We kept them under 200 yards total offense the entire game. So, big win for them. Tomorrow, they play at noon.
Can I just talk about that game for just a second?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Before we go on to tomorrow's game. I will say, I don't hardly ever question Harbaugh. I love Jim, and I got a lot of faith in Harbaugh. But I want to your guys' opinion about this, because I was like, what the fuck are you doing? The pick six. The first pick six. There was 2, right?
Yeah, there's 2. They were back-to-back.
Okay, that's right. So not the second one, but he takes a boy out, right? Takes the quarterback out.
O'Corn comes in.
What's his name? The starter?
Spate, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so he sits Spate, and immediately I kind of questioned this a little bit because they show Spate sitting on the bench and he's got his head down as he should because he just fucked up big time twice. And one of his teammates is kind of leaning over him, like giving him a pep talk, like, "Don't you fucking wuss out on me, you know? Hey, this shit happens. Shake it off," basically. And they showed that image, and I was like, man, I don't know if I like that idea that you sat him. I don't know if that's a good idea. But let me just tell you like how it played out. So O'Corn comes in, and I don't know this guy, and I found out a lot more about him. He was a transfer from, do you know where he was from?
Houston,
thank you. And he had some good numbers at Houston. I knew he was a sophomore on paper. I saw that, but I didn't remember him being a freshman last year. So as a Wolverine, so I didn't really remember the guy. And when he came into the game, they started going blah blah blah. You know, he's a transfer from Houston, and I was like, oh, that's why I don't remember him. And they threw his stats up real quick, and he had some pretty good numbers. Well, instantly, I didn't really see Spate, whatever his name is. I didn't see him doing a whole lot when I was watching the game. Instantly, O'Korn throws a fucking beautiful pass down the sidelines. Did you see that pass?
To Tariq Black,
Black.
think.
I
Yeah.
like that guy, by the way. He's one to watch. Number 7, wide receiver.
Number 7, it's going to be number 7 and number 9.
Yeah.
Number 9 is DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Uh-huh.
They're the two freshmen this year that are supposed to.
Yeah, and Black
there.
looked good. He looked real good in
Yeah.
that game against Florida. But anyways, he threw this pass. O'Korn threw this pass with somebody in his face, and it's not an easy route because it's one of those, just you throw it down the sidelines.
I think they call it a fly route or something
Right,
like that.
and
where
dude,
you just
it
go.
was a perfect throw. And we ended up getting points off of that. We got a field goal out of it. So I thought, well, fuck, okay, hey, man. I was all for Spate. Like, I probably would have started him, too, if I was Harbaugh. But now that you've taken him out, okay, this dude's proven himself. He put 3 points on the board. He's the man the rest of the game, in my head.
Right.
So we get the ball back with, like, a minute 50 before halftime. And we're on, like, the 9 or 10 yard line. We're pretty far back. And he brings Spate back in the game. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing, Jim? Because now you bring him back in, the quarterback that he was shaken or rattled. You made him sit down and think about it. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. Sometimes it works. Depends on who you are. I've seen quarterbacks get sit down and then they come back in the game and they just fuck up. Because they had time to sit on the bench and go, oh God, I'm falling apart, this is my whole career. Sometimes they sit on the bench and they go, what the fuck was I thinking? I saw that guy, it was a bad read, I'm not going to do that again. Right? But now you fucked with O'Korn's confidence too. Because he came in the game, he made a couple of really good passes, he got points on the board, and then as a coach you said, okay, I'm bringing the other guy back in.
I wouldn't. I don't think it's gonna. It is or has gonna be messing with his confidence because Harbaugh said that was the plan all along. I think the question was the timing of it. After the 2 picks, then you decided to put O'Korn in, but Harbaugh
And he
said
did well.
that was right. He did well. But I think this is going to work out into Michigan's advantage too, because now you've got not only one, but you got 2 quarterbacks to
You think
plan
we're
for
going to do
now.
that? You think we're going to do that this year? Because I really don't.
There
like,
might- there
I don't
might
like
be
when we do that.
There,
Although
now, unless Spieth is doing phenomenal, then I don't see the need to. But there might be some plays because they did say that O'Korn is more mobile than Spieth, so there could be chances where he goes in like pass or something, but it breaks down and he breaks it for 15, 20 yards. Keeps the play alive. Mm-hmm. There are certain aspects to where Spieth is better than O'Korn and O'Korn is better than Spieth in certain aspects.
I've just never been a fan of the 2-headed dragon system. I've just never did. Although I will say this, there's one big exception. Michigan football has won the national championship once in my lifetime, 1997.
97, yep.
And that year, it was like a 50-50 shared quarterback. It was Greasy's kid, Brian Greasy.
It was Brian Greasy.
And
It
was
no
Patriots.
yeah.
Brady.
It was Brady.
Was it Brady?
It was Brady and Greasy. And
Yeah,
it was
weirdly
Brady.
enough, I liked Greasy more back then. Weirdly, it's funny to me that I think that now.
Yeah,
Dude, I'm
like
starting to be a big Patriots fan, dude.
I'm
I'm sorry.
I
guys.
love Brady.
Dude, Brady. That's the reason.
I'm a Brady fan.
Yeah, I'm a Brady.
Huge
I would
Brady.
wear a Brady jersey, dude, any day.
I would too, because he's a Wolverine.
For
Yeah.
life.
Right. I would never wear another Patriots number jersey.
Right.
A Brady jersey, yes.
A Michigan Brady jersey. That would be sweet.
Yeah, that would be fucking sweet.
Dude, that would be-
Yeah, that would be fucking awesome. But yeah, I when we had what's his name that was number 98, the black dude, a couple of years ago.
Gardner.
Gardner.
Devin Gardner.
I did not like Devin Gardner. I did not.
He had moments.
He had shining moments. He did. And then he had moments
It
where I
went-
was like, what the fuck are you playing quarterback for?
Well,
he had
I
dude,
think-
he would
I-
run every time he fucking ran the ball.
Well,
I was like,
I think his slow decline happened the night he put on number 98.
I agree. The night we played Iowa and we lost. I totally agree. He changed numbers to honor some other Michigan.
It was yeah.
One of our
I want to say
old-
Tom Herman or Harmon, something. I
I
don't
think
know.
it is Harmon.
I think it was Harmon. But
Yeah,
his a Hall of Fame jersey, puts it on, and he just steadily declined from
You're
there.
right, because the year before he wasn't that bad.
He was pretty good.
Yeah, and then that year he put that number on and
Yeah,
he was shit. He was shit. Every time that dude would run with the ball, because he had a habit of dropping the ball, remember?
Mhm.
Remember he was a great fucking, he could dodge people, he could elude people, and you'd see him make moves and go, oh my god! And then he'd start to like break free and he'd just drop the ball with no one touching him.
Yep.
Dude would do shit like that. Like, make 3 guys miss him that you were like, holy shit! And then he'd take off down the sidelines and step out. Like with nobody touching him, or just drop the ball and
Yeah.
fumble it out of bounds or something. And I'd be like, what the fuck was that? That guy drove me nuts. But anyway, I've just never been a fan of the 2 quarterback system because I think it fucks with the quarterbacks' heads. I do. I think it doesn't usually work out.
Well,
It's a
I think
leadership position.
Well, yeah, it works out if they both understand the situation.
And most guys usually don't, I think.
Well, I think Harbaugh is one where he's not going to kind of keep that from you. Like I think they both prepare, but it's Speed's job to lose.
Right.
Like if he fucks up again, let's say tomorrow, then there's going to be some serious questions about.
Especially if it's back to back.
Right. But he proved himself last year, and that's why he got the
Right.
starting nod this year.
I'm not a big fan of the guy, but I was impressed with some of his composure last year.
I'm just personally more excited about the quarterbacks they've got in the pipeline.
I don't really know.
One of the quarterbacks that was in contention, sorta, is a guy by the name of Brandon Peters, who's supposed to be a phenomenal quarterback. I think he's from Indiana somewhere, or maybe it's the other quarterback that's just coming in this year, who they redshirted. It's not going to be, but he's a redshirt freshman this year because Brandon Peters he redshirted last year, so he wasn't available. Which Harbaugh always does every year to get their top quarterbacks, their top prospects ready when they're ready to step in. He did that for Andrew Luck when he was at Stanford. He'd redshirted him, and we all know how Andrew Luck turned out. But
How old is Speed? Is he a junior?
he's a senior, and O'Korn's a senior too. He's a 5th-year senior.
Oh, so next
So they're
year
both seniors.
we
So
will
it's
have new blood.
well, right. That's why I'm not as upset because I know it's Brandon Peters. I'm pretty sure it's going to be his job next year. But we talk about
let's
now.
talk about tomorrow's game.
Right. So
home opener.
yes, their home opener.
Let's go.
Yes.
Let's go. Call off work
go.
tomorrow.
Call off work.
Okay, I'll call off right now.
I said, remember when I was like, dude, we ought to just go up there and tailgate.
You should.
We seriously, the 3 of us, I brought that up to Nate, and Nate's like, shit. That sounds like, I saw the look.
I
on
don't know if I'm going all the way up there. I want to see the fucking game.
I know, dude, but
I know.
I
know
gotta
tickets now are expensive.
you
I
gotta
need to
have a
find
couple
out.
$100 on you.
Yeah.
I know.
I need to have a paycheck so
I
I
don't
can
know.
fucking buy shit.
I need money.
I would have a great time, and I would feel epically guilty when I walked out, especially if they didn't fucking win. But after spending,
experience.
I know, I've been there one time, and I didn't have to pay for the ticket, and that's probably why I was there. Because a ticket, I've heard now, even to the average home game, if you're not a season ticket holder and you don't get the tickets ahead of time, it's a couple $100, no matter who the game is. So I don't have that kind of money.
No, I don't think any of us do, but
I would love to. But if the closest thing I can get is to be outside the big house, be in the atmosphere fucking
No.
watching the games.
I'm
Dude,
sorry.
it would be a lot of fun,
I'm
Nate.
sorry.
You know it would be.
I'm sorry. If I'm sitting there and I can look at a big house and you can hear the fucking crowds in, that would piss me off because I want to be in there. I want to see it.
We can sneak in, dude.
This isn't the Polo Grounds in 1923. No, you're not getting in.
No.
No,
Okay.
you're not getting in. Not nowadays. No, there's security everywhere.
Yeah.
True.
Although
But
you can fucking go in a movie theater quite easily still. you might be right. I don't know, man. Maybe after halftime they're just like, fuck it, whatever. Maybe they let most of the security off duty after halftime or something.
We just were a bunch of Michigan.
But you don't have, it's not like a normal venue where you might, if you go to a White Sox game, maybe the 6th inning, everybody's leaving.
No, I know these seats are fucking packed.
Yeah, nobody's leaving the game.
Yeah, there's nobody's gonna be leaving the game. I mean, there's avenues where you can get cheap tickets too. Like there's StubHub or.
Well, fucking do it, Nate.
SeatGeek
Don't talk
and all
about
that
it.
stuff.
Be about it. If we can find cheap tickets, fuck.
I say we go in October.
If I could buy a $60 ticket, I would do it.
Yeah.
If we could get 3 tickets for $200,
Each?
$66.
60
Oh.
bucks a piece. Yeah.
$60-something a piece.
That's $180. Not bad.
You guys in? I mean, if we could.
Yeah, you gonna buy the tickets?
I don't mean buying everybody. I mean, we pull together our
Just buy
fucking.
mine and me.
Because you still gotta have $50 in gas to get there and back, right?
Yeah.
And then food.
And then food. So you're gonna drop at least another $100.
$10 personal pan of pizza.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't need to eat steaks and shit. That's the beauty of it, dude. If you did go and you did want to tailgate, I've never tailgated really, but I hear people just be like, "Hey, you want a brat? You want a dog?" I've never done that, but I've heard it's very open like that.
Right.
I mean, not like I'm gonna be up there like, "Hey, dude, I'm gonna have one of those. You don't mind, dude? Just grab a dog off of his."
Is Steve at tailgate? Hey, what am I doing?
I don't
Go
mind
back
when you
us.
take a bite. Hey, I didn't fucking give you that. I don't care.
Oh, can I go Packers?
Go back and...
Go Packers.
Go Packers. What'd you fucking call me? Put down my waiter. You're the pecker. But yeah, dude, fuck, if we could. Anyways. Yeah.
So, yeah, they're playing at noon tomorrow
And they're playing
on
the
ABC.
On ABC. So Nate says, I have no confirmation of this.
They're playing the Cincinnati Bearcats.
Who I don't know much about other than I know they do have a good football program.
They usually have a decent program.
They care about their football over at Cincinnati. They do. So I'm not taking that game lightly. I'm not. And I will say this. It was last week's game was a lot of fun to watch, but I don't think it proved a whole lot because Florida looked fucking pathetic.
Right.
They did. They just there were many chances they had that I think a team like Alabama would have definitely taken advantage of. They had moments that they just they couldn't do nothing. I mean, they literally could not run on us. And I'm not taking anything away from our defense because I think we're going to have a good defense. Before game 1, I was kind of like, I don't know, we lost a lot of defensive guys, which we did. But we refuel at Michigan. We're always loaded. And the defense is going to be good, but I don't think that game told us a whole lot. I really don't, because Florida was missing a lot of key players. And if they had all their guys with them, I think that game would have been a fight. A definite fight. But anyways, thoughts, predictions tomorrow? Do you see, first of all, before you throw a number out there, a prediction, what kind of a game do you see Speed having? Speed, whatever the fuck his name is.
David Spade. I think he'll have a bounce back game. I think he'll be a little more. He'll be more accurate with his. I don't think you're going to see. I mean, you might still see an occasional high throw. Maybe he overthrows somebody, but I don't think it's going to be so obvious.
Any picks?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say he's going to be a little more secure at the ball, but I think their running game is going to do the talking again.
I think so too. I think that he will have an interception, but I also think it'll be later in the game, and we will
When the game's out of hand,
Yeah,
probably.
and I don't think it would be something where Harbaugh pulls him. I think he's going to put up.
If it's out of hand late in the game, it might not even be him. It might be O'Korn.
True.
You know,
So go ahead, throw your prediction out there.
I'm starting first. Okay.
Do 1,000.
That's 1,000 is nothing.
1,000 is nothing. 2,001.
I will say, I'm going to say they're going to score. I think they're going to score big again this week, and I'm going to go 45-7.
Ooh, I was just thinking that number. 7.
I was thinking 7. Yeah, I'm thinking the defense is going to show up with the same ferocity. I think we're still going to see the same stifling defense from last week. I think Speed will throw 3 touchdowns. I think there'll be at least 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns and probably a defensive touchdown.
So what'd you say? 40 what?
I would say 45-7.
That's a big blowout.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I want to say 47-10. Because Nate was close last week. So I'm going to go a little bit closer with Nate this week.
looks like the price is right.
Right.
$1, Bob. $1.
And I'll clarify 45-7 Michigan over
Right.
Cincinnati. I want to clarify that.
I mean 46-8.
Who you got winning?
We do reserve the right to, if you think Michigan's going to lose the game.
Right.
Get the fuck out, right?
Say, fuck you. I'm going to run you over with my car. I'm going to say a little bit closer. I'm going to say, I think we're going to get a safety.
Okay. Yeah, we came close last
I
week.
strongly feel there's a safety going to happen. So I'm going to say 26-7.
Wow, you're a bitch.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be 17-7, and we're gonna get a safety, make it 19-7, and then we're gonna score one more touchdown. So 26-7.
26-7. Yeah.
Right.
I still think our defense is gonna fucking look stellar.
Stellar!
And that's your Maze Minute.
And that's our Maze 10-minute right
Maze
there.
10 minute. Oh, by the way, pro football started last night.
Oh yeah, that's
Go
right.
Lions, baby!
What was the score?
Patriots lost to the Chiefs
They did.
42-27.
I watched that
Are you
game.
fucking kidding me?
I'm not kidding
I
you.
watched that game last
Brady
night.
had no passing touchdowns. He
Are
threw.
you kidding me?
I was like 13 for 36, like
Ooh.
267 yards, no touchdowns. Their running back had 3 touchdowns. Mike Gillislee, I want to say, their new acquisition from Buffalo.
Gronkowski's back, ain't he?
Gronkowski's back. He had like 2 catches for 30 yards.
But Brady
wasn't himself. Alex Smith, the guy everybody keeps shitting on for Kansas City, he threw for 4 touchdowns.
Wow.
Although Kansas City lost their starting safety, Eric Berry, for the season, torn Achilles.
Ouch.
He's done.
I will say this. I just got my new Sports Illustrated in the NFL preview. Sports Illustrated predicted New England to win the Super Bowl. So,
Which is still possible.
oh yeah, it's week 1.
I mean, it's
but
just
they
one
only
game, but
had,
yeah.
they had, they go through every team pretty. They make a lot of predictions.
Right.
And 13-2.
No.
14
it'd be 14-2.
14-2 is what they said the Patriots were going. So they already got one loss.
There,
of the two.
one.
I think it's the Lions.
They were saying Patriots, Packers, and Patriots by like 7.
Oh, God. Get off Aaron Rodgers' dick, for Christ's sake.
tired.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
Aaron Rodgers was on the cover.
I want to punch Steve in the face.
The Bears were 6-10, and we were like 4th in the division.
What was the Lions? I like the
The
Lions.
Lions were
last,
8-8, I think, or 7-9.
It's
like
probably,
that.
was it what,
They
Packers and
No,
Vikings, or
they
is Vikings
They actually
Packers?
had Vikings-Packers.
Vikings-Packers.
Vikings win in the division, and Packers become
In the
the
wild
wild
card.
card. And they had very similar. They had Because I think it's the Cowboys this year. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
But they had the Cowboys.
Des Bryant is a beast.
They had the Cowboys winning the division. No, the Giants winning the division, and the Cowboys being the other wild
wild card out of the East.
Right, and both of them had really similar records, like good records. But
Philadelphia.
And they predicted the Falcons are going to win their division. I guess there's one more division. I'm trying to remember who the divisions
Probably
were.
Seattle, probably out in the West then.
Seattle was a wild card.
Fuck the Seahawks.
Yeah, I don't like the Seahawks either, but
They lost my
Do we want to?
I looked at because to me this was kind of interesting because I have a friend out in Los Angeles. You know, there's two Los Angeles teams.
Fuck your friend. I'm
There's-
sorry.
There's two Los Angeles teams.
Right,
this
the
year, yeah.
Los Angeles Chargers
That's
and
so
the Los
fucking
Angeles
weird.
Rams.
That's so
It's
weird.
okay.
So I looked at the standings, their predictions, like, okay, which LA team is they got picked as the better LA team, and they got them with identical
records, of course.
I was like, well, that's the
Err on the side of caution, you fucking
right.
prick.
That's the safe
Well,
route.
who else they got in California? They got Oakland.
Oh, they had the Raiders winning their division.
I think this is the last year for Oakland. Then they're going to
Really?
move it out to Vegas.
That's right, the Las
Yeah.
Vegas Raiders.
Why don't they just go to the Rams and let fucking...
Well,
they
the
got-
Rams just moved from St. Louis to Los Angeles, so they weren't going to move again.
Yeah.
Are they going to call them Nevada or Las Vegas?
I think they're going to call them the Las Vegas Raiders.
That's so weird.
And then they got
LV
the
Raiders.
San Diego Chargers.
Which is
Oh.
now Los Angeles now.
It's the Los Angeles.
It's the Los Angeles Chargers now.
Oh, that's what you guys said.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fucking stupid.
And I saw I saw a
fucking
preseason
stupid.
picture of the Rams, and they had white helmets, blue and white.
They're not golden red or golden blue?
Well, the uniforms pretty much looked the same.
The same, but the helmet is
But
different.
the helmet had a white Ram's horn. Thank you.
Yeah, it was gold before, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Golden
Yeah, it was a
blue.
gold blue. That's right.
I kind of liked the white helmets. I think they had those uniforms at one time, or those helmets. Old ones.
I might have been. Yeah,
They might be throwbacks. I
it
don't
could
know.
be.
But anyways, yeah, Patriots lost, motherfucker.
Yeah,
That's
dude, they lost.
when was the last time they lost in Week 1? I bet you that wasn't. It's been a while.
This was the worst loss under Bill Belichick.
Ever?
Yeah, and I think this is the
Wow.
first time Brady has lost having the lead going into the fourth quarter.
No.
Previously, before this, he was 105-0.
Oh, so they choked in the fourth quarter?
I think so. I think it might have been. It might have been like,
I watched it all the way up until the third. I was like, yeah, we're gonna win.
"Fuck, we lost."
And then I put on Rogue One.
All right, guys, we're approaching 3 hours, so we're
All
going to end the podcast right there.
All right.
Catch us next week, Nerd Night Council. Like, dislike, whatever the fuck. We don't care. We just do it for fun.
Right.
We don't care about you bitches. Next week, same bat time, same bat channel.
All right, peace.
Peace.